Logan Hayes thought his blind date was just nervous until he found her sobbing in a parking lot with two terrified children clinging to her sides. The "I can't make it" text had stung, but nothing prepared him for what he'd discover outside that restaurant. Ava Mitchell, the woman who'd canceled on him minutes ago, now broken and desperate with nowhere left to turn. One decision in that parking lot would either send him walking away forever or change 4 lives in ways none of them could imagine. Stay with me until the end of this story and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey travels. The shirt had taken Logan Hayes 20 minutes to iron properly. 20 minutes of careful, deliberate strokes across pale blue cotton that had hung in his closet for nearly 3 years, waiting for an occasion that mattered. The fabric still smelled faintly of cedar from the storage box where it had lived alongside other relics of the man he used to be. The man who went to dinner parties, who laughed easily at work functions, who didn't spend most evenings talking to empty rooms. He'd stood before his bathroom mirror that evening, practicing the small talk he knew normal people made on first dates. "How's your week been? What kind of work do you do? Do you like this place?" Simple questions that felt impossibly complex when you'd forgotten how to connect with another human being on any level beyond professional courtesy and shallow pleasantries. The blind date had been Martha's idea. Martha, from accounting, who'd watched him eat lunch alone at his desk for the past 2 years and finally decided enough was enough. She'd cornered him by the coffee maker 3 weeks ago with that particular brand of determination that middle-aged women wielded when they decided someone needed fixing. "Her name's Ava Mitchell," Martha had said, sliding a piece of paper with a phone number across the break room counter. "She's a friend of my sister's, single mom, works at the library, loves old movies. You two would be perfect together." Logan had wanted to protest, to explain that he wasn't looking for perfect or even good enough, that he'd made peace with his solitude the way one makes peace with chronic pain, learning to live around it rather than through it. But Martha's eyes had held something that looked like genuine concern, and he'd been alone long enough to recognize kindness when someone bothered to offer it. So he'd called. Ava's voice on the phone had been warm but cautious, like someone who'd learned to guard her words carefully. They'd talked for 17 minutes. He'd counted, checking his watch nervously throughout, about safe topics, the weather, favorite books, the new Italian place that had opened downtown. She'd agreed to meet him there on Friday at 7:30. That had been 5 days ago. 5 days of Logan second-guessing every aspect of the plan, of wondering if he'd forgotten how to be the kind of man a woman would want to spend an evening with, of fighting the urge to cancel and retreat back into the comfortable numbness of routine. But he hadn't canceled. He'd ironed the shirt. He'd shaved carefully around the gray patches in his beard that seemed to multiply every month. He'd even splashed on cologne, something woody and understated that the sales clerk had promised wouldn't overwhelm. He'd driven to Giuseppe's Italian kitchen 15 minutes early, parked in the back corner of the lot, where his old truck wouldn't look quite so shabby next to the BMWs and Teslas, and sat there working up the courage to walk inside. His phone had buzzed at exactly 7:22. The text was brief, almost brutally so. "I'm sorry, I can't make it." Logan had stared at those 7 words until they blurred, feeling something heavy and familiar settle in his chest. Of course she'd canceled. Why had he even hoped otherwise? He was 42 years old, wore the same 5 shirts in rotation, lived in a house that echoed with absence, and had apparently become the kind of man who was easy to cancel on without explanation. He'd typed and deleted 4 different responses before finally settling on, "No problem. Hope everything's okay." Professional, distant, safe. The rational part of his brain, the part that had kept him functioning through 2 years of grief and loneliness, told him to go home. Heat up leftover pasta, watch whatever game was on TV, pretend this evening had never been marked on his calendar with cautious, foolish optimism. But another part of him, smaller and more stubborn, refused to let the night end so pathetically. He'd gotten dressed up. He'd hoped, damn it, even if that hope had been crushed before it could fully form. The least he could do was walk around the block, clear his head, maybe grab a coffee somewhere quiet before slinking back to his empty house. Logan climbed out of his truck, pocketing his phone and keys. The evening air was thick with August heat, the kind that pressed down on your shoulders and made simple breathing feel like work. Giuseppe's sat at the corner of 5th and Morrison, its warm windows glowing gold against the darkening sky. Couples moved past the glass, laughing, touching, existing in that easy intimacy that felt like a foreign language Logan had once spoken, but could no longer remember. He turned away from the restaurant, heading toward the back section of the parking lot where the asphalt gave way to gravel and weeds pushed through the cracks. A few cars sat scattered in the cheap seats, older models like his truck, vehicles that wore their age honestly. That's when he heard it. Crying. Not the loud, dramatic sobbing of someone seeking attention, but the quiet, devastating kind that came from someone who didn't want to be heard at all. Logan slowed, his protective instincts, dormant for so long, flickering to life. The sound came from behind a weathered blue SUV, its paint oxidized and bumper held on with what looked like wire and prayer. He approached carefully, not wanting to startle whoever was hiding back there. What he saw made him stop cold. A woman sat on the warm pavement, her back against the SUV's rear tire, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with the effort of crying silently. Her dress, something simple and cream-colored that might have looked nice in better circumstances, was wrinkled and dusty from the parking lot. 2 children clung to her arms. A boy, maybe 6 or 7, with dark hair that stuck up in cowlicks and eyes too serious for his age. A girl, younger, 4 at most, with tangled pigtails and a pink dress that had seen better days. Both kids looked terrified, their small hands gripping their mother's sleeves like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Logan's breath caught. He recognized the woman's profile even before she lifted her head. Ava Mitchell. His canceled blind date was crying in a parking lot with her children, 20 feet from the restaurant where they were supposed to have met. For a long moment, Logan just stood there, paralyzed by the collision of expectation and reality. The woman he'd imagined meeting inside Giuseppe's, composed, polite, making careful conversation over breadsticks, didn't match the broken figure in front of him. Yet there was no mistaking her face. He'd studied the single photo Martha had shown him enough times to memorize the curve of her cheekbone, the way her smile seemed almost apologetic. That smile was nowhere to be seen now. The little girl noticed him first. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with alarm, and she whispered something urgent to her mother. Ava's head jerked up, panic flooding her features as she scrambled to wipe her face with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she stammered, trying to push herself to her feet while both children clung to her. We were just leaving. But her legs wobbled, and she sank back down against the tire, fresh tears spilling over despite her obvious effort to contain them. Logan should have walked away. This woman had canceled their date. She'd made it clear she didn't want to see him. Whatever crisis she was experiencing wasn't his responsibility, wasn't his business. He could retreat to his truck with his dignity intact, his evening no more ruined than it already was. Instead, he found himself moving closer, lowering himself to sit on the pavement, a respectful distance away. "Ava," he said quietly, "I'm Logan. We were supposed to—" "I know who you are," her voice cracked. "God, I'm so sorry. You weren't supposed to see this. You weren't supposed to see any of this." The boy, Noah, Logan remembered Martha mentioning his name, pressed closer to his mother, watching Logan with wary distrust. "Who is he, Mama?" "It's okay, baby. Ava's breath hitched. "He's a friend." "We're not supposed to talk to strangers," the little girl, Lila, announced with the absolute certainty of preschool wisdom. "That's a good rule," Logan agreed, keeping his voice gentle. He directed his next words to Ava. "I don't want to intrude, but you're sitting in a parking lot with your kids, and you're crying. If there's anything I can do—" "There isn't." The words came out sharper than she probably intended, then softer, almost defeated. "There's nothing anyone can do." Silence settled between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the restaurant, laughter, clinking glasses, the uncomplicated sounds of people whose lives weren't currently falling apart in public. Logan knew he should leave. Every social instinct he possessed told him this woman needed space, privacy, the dignity of handling her crisis without an audience. But something else, some deeper recognition he couldn't quite name, kept him planted on that warm pavement. "I'm going to tell you something," he said finally, "and you can tell me to leave after if you want." Ava looked up, her eyes red and exhausted. 3 years ago, Logan continued, I got a phone call at 2 in the morning. My parents had been driving back from a wedding in Colorado. Drunk driver crossed the median on I-70. He paused, the words still carrying weight even after all this time. They died before the ambulance arrived. Both of them. Just gone. Ava's expression shifted, pain recognizing pain. I spent the next 6 months going through the motions, Logan said. Work, home, sleep, repeat. People kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying yes because that's what you do. You hold it together in public. You fall apart in private. Why are you telling me this? Ava whispered. Because I learned something during those 6 months. Logan met her eyes. Sometimes the kindest thing someone can do isn't to fix your problems or even to understand them. Sometimes it's just to sit with you while you fall apart, without judgment, without pity, without needing you to pretend everything's fine. A fresh wave of tears spilled down Ava's cheeks, but she didn't look away. So I'm going to sit here, Logan said simply. You don't have to explain anything. You don't have to apologize for canceling. You don't owe me your story. But I'm not going to walk away and leave you crying in a parking lot with your kids. For a long moment, Ava just stared at him, as if trying to determine whether his offer was genuine or some elaborate trick. Logan waited, letting the silence do its work. Noah tugged on his mother's sleeve. Mama, I'm hungry. The simple statement seemed to break something in Ava. A sound escaped her throat, half laugh, half sob. I know, baby. I know you are. We were supposed to get McDonald's, Lila announced, her earlier wariness momentarily forgotten in the face of more pressing concerns. But Mama said we couldn't because we're having an adventure instead. Some adventure, Ava muttered, burying her face in her hands again. Logan considered the scene in front of him. 2 hungry kids, a mother at the end of her rope, and an evening that had already gone sideways for everyone involved. A normal person, someone more socially adept, someone who hadn't spent 2 years learning to live with loneliness, would probably know the right thing to say here. Some perfect combination of words that would make everything better without overstepping. Logan wasn't that person, but he was a person who recognized desperation when he saw it, and who remembered what it felt like to wish someone, anyone, would just show up. There's a diner about 4 blocks from here, he said. Mel's place. Nothing fancy, just burgers, fries, that kind of thing. They have a kids' menu with crayons. Ava lifted her head slowly. What? I'm hungry too, Logan continued, as if this were the most natural suggestion in the world. And I've already gotten dressed up and driven all the way downtown. Seems like a waste to let the evening end without at least getting some dinner. You want to have dinner with us? Disbelief colored Ava's voice. You want to have dinner with the woman who just stood you up, who's crying in a parking lot with her kids? I want to have dinner with 4 people who all look like they could use a meal and maybe a few minutes where nobody has to hold it together. Logan pushed himself to his feet, brushing off his jeans, then extended a hand down to Ava. No expectations, no pressure, just food and maybe some bad coffee. Ava stared at his outstretched hand like it was a foreign object. Noah looked up at his mother, then at Logan, then back to his mother. Can we go, Mama? Please? I'm really, really hungry. And they have crayons, Lila added, as if this was the clinching argument. Logan watched Ava's face cycle through a dozen emotions. Suspicion, hope, fear, exhaustion, and finally something that looked like surrender. Not the bad kind where you give up. The necessary kind where you accept that you can't do everything alone anymore. She reached up and took his hand. Her palm was small and rough with work, her fingers calloused in ways that told stories of hard labor and harder choices. Logan pulled gently, helping her to her feet. She swayed slightly, and he steadied her with a hand on her elbow, professional and careful. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Mel's coffee is truly terrible. The smallest smile ghosted across Ava's lips, there and gone in an instant, but real. Logan looked down at the 2 children, who were regarding him with renewed interest now that food had entered the conversation. So I'm Logan, he said, crouching down to their eye level. I already know you're Noah and Lila because your mom mentioned you. What do you guys like on your burgers? Cheese, Noah said immediately. And pickles. Lots of pickles. I like everything, Lila announced. Except tomatoes. Tomatoes are yucky. Lila Rose Mitchell, that's not polite, Ava started, but Logan waved her off. She's not wrong. Tomatoes are definitely an acquired taste. He stood back up. My truck's over there if you want to follow me, or we can all ride together and I'll bring you back here after. Whatever's easier. Ava glanced at her SUV and something complicated passed over her face. We'll follow you if that's still okay? More than okay. Logan pulled his keys from his pocket. It's 4 blocks east on Morrison, then a left on 7th. You can't miss it. There's a giant neon sign of a coffee cup that's been broken for at least a decade. As they walked toward their respective vehicles, Logan caught Noah watching him with that same wary assessment. The boy's small hand gripped his mother's tightly, ready to pull her back at the first sign of danger. Smart kid, Logan thought. Trust shouldn't come easy, not in a world that taught children to be cautious. He climbed into his truck and waited until Ava had gotten both kids buckled into the SUV before pulling out of the parking space. In his rearview mirror, he could see her gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, her expression unreadable. This was insane. He barely knew this woman. She'd canceled their date, and now he was taking her and her children to a diner because… Why, exactly? Because she'd been crying? Because her kids were hungry? Because some broken part of him recognized another broken part of her and couldn't walk away? Logan didn't have answers. He just had a gut feeling that this evening had stopped being about a blind date the moment he'd seen Ava collapsed against that tire. Sometimes life presented you with a choice: walk away from the mess or step into it. For 2 years, Logan had been walking away from everything that required emotional engagement. Walking away had kept him safe, kept him functional, kept him from having to feel too much. But tonight, for reasons he couldn't fully explain, walking away felt like the wrong choice. So he drove toward Mel's place, checking his mirror every few seconds to make sure the weathered blue SUV was still behind him, carrying a woman and 2 children who had somehow become his responsibility in the space of a parking lot conversation. The broken neon sign came into view, a coffee cup with half its letters burned out, reading Mies PLE. Logan pulled into the small parking lot, watching as Ava pulled in beside him. For a moment, she just sat there, hands still gripping the wheel, staring straight ahead. Logan waited, giving her space to change her mind, to drive away, to decide that accepting help from a stranger was too risky or too humiliating. But then she turned off her engine. She climbed out, unbuckled her kids, and walked toward the diner's entrance where Logan stood holding the door open. "Last chance to run," he said quietly as she passed him. He meant it as a joke, but the look she gave him was entirely serious. "I stopped running a long time ago," she said. "Now I just survive." Then she walked inside, her children trailing behind her like small satellites, and Logan followed them into the fluorescent brightness of Mel's place, where the coffee was indeed terrible and the vinyl booths were held together with duct tape, but where 4 people who'd all had spectacularly awful evenings might find something that looked a little bit like grace. The dinner bell chimed as the door closed behind them, marking the moment that Logan Hayes stopped being a man who'd been stood up and started being something else entirely. He just didn't know what yet. The interior of Mel's place looked exactly like every working-class diner that had survived 3 economic recessions through sheer stubbornness and decent pie. Red vinyl booths lined the windows, their seats patched with electrical tape in a dozen places. The linoleum floor had worn thin in a path from the door to the counter, marking decades of shuffling feet. Framed photographs of local high school sports teams from the 1980s covered one wall, their colors faded to sepia tones that made everyone look like ghosts. A waitress who had to be pushing 70 looked up from wiping down the counter, her expression cycling from boredom to mild interest as she took in the unlikely group. Logan first, tall, decent-looking, wearing a shirt that was obviously too nice for this place. Then Ava, whose red eyes and rumpled dress told a story the waitress had probably seen 100 times before. Finally, the kids, tired and hungry and clinging to their mother like she was the only safe thing in a dangerous world. "Sit anywhere, hun," the waitress called, her voice carrying the particular rasp of someone who'd smoked for 40 years and quit too late to matter. Her name tag read Dottie in faded letters. Logan gestured toward a booth in the back corner, away from the few other customers scattered throughout the diner. Ava nodded gratefully and shepherded her children toward it, sliding in first so both kids could squeeze in beside her. Logan took the opposite bench, suddenly aware of how intimate this arrangement felt. like a family dinner, except they weren't a family, weren't even friends really. Were just four people who'd stumbled into each other's disasters. Dottie appeared with menus and a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What can I get you folks to drink?" "Chocolate milk," Lila announced before anyone else could speak. "Please," she added after a pointed look from her mother. "Same," Noah said quietly, his eyes tracking Dottie's every movement with that same wariness he'd shown Logan in the parking lot. "Coffee for me," Ava said. "Please." "Make that too," Logan added. "And could we get some crayons for the kids?" "Sure thing, sugar." Dottie scribbled on her pad, then disappeared toward the kitchen, moving with the efficient shuffle of someone whose feet had hurt for the last 20 years. Silence settled over the table. Lila kicked her feet against the booth, a rhythmic thumping that filled the awkward space. Noah stared at the table, picking at a piece of the tape that held the vinyl together. Ava seemed to be studying the menu with an intensity that suggested she was reading doctoral dissertation rather than a laminated list of basic diner food. Logan cleared his throat. "So the burgers here are pretty good. Nothing fancy, but solid. And their fries are—" "Why are you doing this?" Ava's voice cut through his rambling. She'd set down the menu and was looking at him with an expression that mixed exhaustion with something harder to define. Suspicion, maybe, or confusion. "You don't know us. I stood you up. Most men would have just—" She glanced at her children and seemed to recalibrate her words. "Most men would have left." "I know." Logan met her gaze steadily. "But I didn't. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now." He leaned back against the booth. "Look, I don't have some grand plan here. I'm not trying to, I don't know, prove something or be a hero. I just saw you crying with your kids, and walking away felt wrong. That's it. That's the whole story." Ava studied him for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether he was lying or deluded, or possibly both. "People don't just help anymore, not without wanting something." "Some people don't," Logan agreed, but I'm not some people. I'm just a guy who had a bad evening that turned out to be someone else's worse evening, and I'm trying to do one decent thing before the day ends." Dottie returned with their drinks before Ava could respond. 2 chocolate milks in tall glasses with red straws, 2 cups of coffee that smelled burnt and probably tasted worse, and a small basket of crayons and paper placemats printed with maze games and connect the dots. She set everything down with practiced efficiency. "You folks ready to order, or you need a minute?" "Minute, please," Logan said, though he'd already decided what he wanted. Ava clearly needed time to collect herself, and the kids needed time to settle. As Dottie walked away, Lila immediately grabbed the red crayon and began attacking one of the placemats with the focused intensity of a preschool artist. Noah took longer to reach for the crayons, glancing at his mother first as if seeking permission. "Go ahead, baby," Ava murmured, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup like it was a source of heat on a cold night, even though the August evening was still thick with humidity. Logan watched Noah select a blue crayon and begin carefully outlining a maze, his small tongue poking out the corner of his mouth in concentration. The boy's seriousness struck Logan as both endearing and sad, that particular gravity that settled on children who'd been forced to grow up too fast. "How old are they?" Logan asked, keeping his voice casual, conversational. "Noah's 7. Just finished first grade. Lila's 4. She starts pre-K in a few weeks." Ava took a sip of coffee and grimaced slightly at the taste. "You weren't kidding about the coffee." "I tried to warn you." Logan added 2 more sugars to his own cup, attempting to make it drinkable. 7 and 4 are good ages, old enough to hold a conversation, young enough to still think their mom knows everything. Noah stopped thinking I know everything about 6 months ago. Ava's voice carried a weight that suggested there was a story behind that statement, one she wasn't ready to share. Now he just worries. As if on cue, Noah looked up from his maze. "Mama, are we still going to have enough money for my school supplies?" Ava's face crumpled for just a second before she smoothed it back into something approaching calm. "We'll figure it out, Noah. We always do." "But you said, Noah Christopher, we'll figure it out." The firmness in her voice left no room for argument, but Logan could hear the desperation underneath, the sound of a woman holding herself together with wishes and willpower. Noah returned to his maze, but his shoulders had tensed, and the crayon pressed harder against the paper. Logan felt something twist in his chest. He recognized that tension, that premature awareness of financial precarity that no 7-year-old should have to carry. He'd grown up comfortable, not wealthy, but stable, and had never known what it meant to worry about school supplies or whether there'd be enough food. But he'd worked construction one summer in college, had listened to his coworkers talk about juggling bills and choosing between medications and groceries, had glimpsed a world where survival took precedence over everything else. Dottie reappeared, pad at the ready. "What can I get you, folks?" "Cheeseburger with pickles for me," Noah said, his voice small but clear. "Please." "I want chicken nuggets," Lila announced. "The dinosaur kind." "We got regular nuggets, hun. They taste the same." Lila considered this gravely. "Okay, but extra ketchup." Ava ordered a small garden salad, and Logan watched her avoid looking at the prices on the menu, a tell he recognized from people who were counting every dollar. "Actually," Logan interjected before Dottie could write down Ava's order, "could we get a basket of mozzarella sticks to share? And maybe some onion rings? The kids might want to try them." Ava opened her mouth to protest, but Logan kept talking, directing his words to Dottie. "And I'll have the bacon cheeseburger, medium, with fries. But make Ava's salad a chef's salad, the big one with the turkey and egg and everything. She mentioned earlier she was starving." He looked at Ava with an expression that dared her to contradict him. "Right?" Ava's jaw tightened, but she nodded slowly. "Right." Dottie scribbled everything down, collected the menus, and shuffled away again. "You didn't have to do that," Ava said quietly once they were alone. "Do what?" "Order extra food. Order me the expensive salad. I can pay for—" "I know you can." Logan kept his voice gentle, non-confrontational. "But this was supposed to be a date, remember? My treat. And just because we're eating here instead of at Giuseppe's doesn't change that." "This isn't a date." Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. "This is you taking pity on someone whose life is falling apart." "It's dinner," Logan said simply. "Nothing more, nothing less. And I'm hungry, so I'm buying myself dinner. The fact that I'm buying dinner for 3 other people at the same time is just—" He searched for the right word. "Logistics." Despite herself, Ava's mouth twitched towards something that might have become a smile in other circumstances. "Logistics. Exactly. Pure logistics." Lila had abandoned her coloring to stare at Logan with the unblinking intensity that only 4-year-olds can achieve. "Are you my mama's boyfriend?" "Lila Rose!" Ava's face flushed. "That's not— We don't ask people—" "It's a fair question," Logan said, fighting back his own embarrassment. He addressed Lila directly. "No, I'm not your mama's boyfriend. I'm just someone who's having dinner with you guys, like a new friend maybe." "Do you have a girlfriend?" Lila continued her interrogation, undeterred. "Lila, that's enough." "No," Logan answered honestly. "No girlfriend." "Why not?" The child's bluntness was almost refreshing after so much adult complexity. "Lila Rose Mitchell, if you don't stop being nosy right this second, it's okay," Logan assured Ava, then turned back to Lila. "I guess I've been busy. Sometimes grown-ups get so busy with work and life stuff that they forget to meet new people." Lila processed this information with a serious expression. "That's sad." "Yeah," Logan agreed quietly. "Sometimes it is." Noah had been quiet throughout this exchange, but Logan noticed the boy was watching him carefully, assessing. When their eyes met, Noah didn't look away. "Do you have kids?" the boy asked. His voice was steadier than his sister's, more guarded. "No, no kids." Do you want kids?" "Noah, seriously." Ava tried to intervene again, but Logan held up a hand. "It's fine. These are reasonable questions when a stranger shows up and buys you dinner." He considered Noah's question carefully, treating it with the seriousness it deserved. "I think I would have liked to have kids someday, but life doesn't always work out the way you plan. Sometimes you end up 42 and alone and eating dinner at Mel's place on a Friday night." "You're not alone," Lila pointed out with impeccable 4-year-old logic. "You're with us." Something warm and unexpected bloomed in Logan's chest. "You're right. Tonight I'm with you guys." Ava had been staring into her coffee cup, but now she looked up at Logan with an expression he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, maybe. Or confusion. Or possibly just exhaustion so profound that every emotion had started to blend together. I should explain, she said finally. About tonight. About why I... She glanced at her children, both now absorbed in their coloring. About what you saw in the parking lot. You don't owe me an explanation. Maybe not. But you deserve one anyway. Ava took a breath and Logan could see her gathering courage like someone preparing to jump off a cliff. My babysitter canceled. 2 hours before I was supposed to meet you, she texted saying she couldn't make it. Emergency with her own family. And I didn't have a backup plan because I never have a backup plan. I'm barely holding together my primary plan most days. Logan nodded but didn't interrupt. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do was just listen. I called everyone I could think of, Ava continued, her voice getting quieter. My neighbor who sometimes watches them. She was working a double shift. The teenager down the street, out of town with her family. My coworker from the library. She's got 3 kids of her own and I'd already asked her for too many favors this month. She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. I even tried calling my ex-husband, which shows you how desperate I was. He couldn't help? Logan asked carefully. He didn't answer. He never answers. He pays his child support, mostly on time, sometimes late, but that's the extent of his involvement. He moved to Arizona 3 years ago, started a whole new life, and we're just, she gestured vaguely, leftover complications from his old one. Noah's crayon pressed harder against the paper. So I sat there in my apartment, already dressed, already nervous, looking at these 2 kids who needed dinner and thinking, Ava's voice cracked, thinking that I could either cancel like a reasonable person or I could be completely insane and bring my children to a first date at a fancy restaurant. That would have been fine, Logan said, meaning it. No, it wouldn't have been. Ava shook her head firmly. You were expecting dinner with a normal woman who has her life together enough to arrange childcare, not a broke single mom who can't even manage the basic logistics of a date. So I loaded the kids in the car thinking maybe I could just, I don't know, show up, explain in person, apologize properly. But then I got to the parking lot and just broke. The babysitter canceling wasn't your fault. It doesn't matter whose fault it was. It's still my problem. Everything is my problem all the time, and I just... She pressed her palms against her eyes. God, I'm sorry. You signed up for a nice dinner, not a therapy session with a stranger. I signed up to meet you, Logan corrected gently. This is still meeting you, just the real version instead of the polished date version. The real version is a mess. Everyone's a mess. Some of us are just better at hiding it. Before Ava could respond, Dottie arrived with their food, balancing plates with the skill of someone who'd been doing this for decades. She distributed everything with minimal fuss. Burgers and nuggets for the kids, the loaded chef salad for Ava, Logan's bacon cheeseburger and fries, plus the mozzarella sticks and onion rings in the middle of the table. Anything else I can get you folks? We're good, Logan said. Thank you. As Dottie walked away, Lila stared at the spread of food with wide eyes. This is so much food. That's because we're sharing, Ava said quickly, though Logan noticed the way her eyes had gone slightly glassy at the sight of her salad, piled high with turkey, ham, hard-boiled egg, cheese, and vegetables. Real food, not the kind of meal you threw together from whatever was cheapest at the grocery store. Everyone dig in, Logan said, squeezing ketchup onto his plate for the fries. For several minutes, there was blessed silence, except for the sounds of eating. Noah approached his burger with serious concentration, carefully removing one pickle to examine it before putting it back. Lila drowned her nuggets in enough ketchup to constitute a crime against condiments. Ava ate her salad slowly, like someone savoring something they'd been craving for a long time. Logan found himself relaxing into the moment. There was something peaceful about sharing a meal with people, even relative strangers. It filled a hollow space he'd been ignoring for 2 years. The simple human need for company, for conversation, for being part of something larger than your own solitary existence. These pickles are really good, Noah announced after his careful examination. Mel's gets them from a local place, Logan said. They're briny but not too sour. What's briny mean? Salty, like ocean water. Noah considered this, then took another bite of his burger, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Lila had ketchup on her face, her hands, and somehow in her hair. Ava grabbed napkins and began the Sisyphean task of cleaning her up while simultaneously trying to eat her own food. Here, Logan said, sliding the mozzarella sticks closer to the kids. Try these, but careful, the cheese stays hot forever. Lila reached for one immediately, then yelped and dropped it. Hot! I told you. Logan couldn't help smiling. Blow on it first. She followed his instructions with exaggerated breath, making Noah laugh, the first genuine laugh Logan had heard from the boy all evening. The sound transformed his serious face into something lighter, more childlike. You got a booger nose when you blow, Noah teased. Do not. Do too. Kids. Ava's warning carried the weight of a mother who'd refereed 1,000 sibling arguments. But Logan noticed she was smiling too, just a little, around the exhaustion and worry. They ate in companionable near silence for a while. The conversations limited to requests to pass the ketchup or comments on the food. Logan found himself cataloging small details, the way Ava cut her food into precise small bites, the way Noah organized his fries by size before eating them, the way Lila narrated her meal like a cooking show host, and now I'm going to eat this nugget with extra ketchup, and it's going to be delicious. Ordinary moments. The kind that didn't feel significant until you'd gone without them long enough to forget what they felt like. Can I ask you something? Ava said eventually, setting down her fork. She'd made impressive progress through her salad. Sure. Why are you really here? And please don't say logistics again. Logan set down his burger and wiped his hands on a napkin, buying himself time to formulate an honest answer. You want the truth? Please. I've been alone for a long time, he said slowly. After my parents died, I just shut down, I guess. Stopped trying to connect with people. Stopped putting myself out there. It felt easier to be numb than to risk feeling anything that might hurt. Ava nodded, clearly understanding that particular survival strategy. Martha from my office had to basically force me to call you, Logan continued. And even then, I almost talked myself out of it a dozen times. Tonight, I was sitting in my truck working up the courage to walk into Giuseppe's, feeling like an idiot for hoping this might be different, might be something. He met her eyes. Then you canceled, and I felt, I don't know, vindicated almost, like I'd been right all along that putting yourself out there just leads to disappointment. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty. Logan traced a line through the condensation on his water glass. I'm telling you because when I saw you crying with your kids, something clicked. I realized I had a choice. I could walk away and let that cancellation text confirm everything I believed about staying isolated and safe. Or I could try something different. Different how? Just showing up, being present, doing one decent thing instead of nothing. He shrugged. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense, Ava said quietly. It makes more sense than you know. Lila had finished her nuggets and was now stealing fries from her brother's plate, a crime Noah tolerated with surprising patience. Both kids were starting to show signs of the day's exhaustion. Lila's eyes were heavy-lidded, and Noah's movements had slowed to half speed. These guys are fading, Logan observed. Ava glanced at her children and sighed. It's been a long day. Noah had summer camp and Lila had a play date that went sideways when she and another kid couldn't agree on what to play. Then the babysitter canceled and she waved her hand vaguely. Everything after that you already know. Well, we've got pie, Logan said, catching Dottie's eye. If they've got room for it. We've always got room for pie, Lila announced, perking up immediately. Dottie arrived with her pad. Dessert? What kind of pie do you have? Logan asked. Apple, cherry, chocolate cream, and banana cream. Can I have chocolate? Lila asked, looking at her mother for permission. We'll split one piece of chocolate cream between you and Noah, Ava decided, then looked at Logan. If that's okay. More than okay, and I'll take apple, heated, with vanilla ice cream if you have it. We do. Dottie looked at Ava. Anything for you, hun? Just coffee. Regular, if you have a fresh pot. I'll make a fresh pot. Be right back." After Dottie left, Ava leaned back against the booth, some of the tension finally leaving her shoulders. This is surreal. 3 hours ago, I was having a complete breakdown in my apartment. Now I'm in a diner with a man I was supposed to meet at a completely different restaurant, eating comfort food and ordering pie for my kids. Life's weird sometimes, Logan agreed. That's an understatement. Ava studied him for a moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more polished, maybe? Martha made you sound very together. Stable job, own your house, responsible adult stuff. I am those things. I just happen to also be those things while eating in a diner that probably violates several health codes. That earned him a real smile. Small, but genuine. Fair point. The pie arrived. A generous slice of chocolate cream topped with whipped cream for the kids to share, and Logan's apple pie still sizzling from the oven with a scoop of vanilla ice cream melting into the crust. Ava's fresh coffee steamed in a clean mug. Noah and Lila dug into their shared pie with the enthusiasm of children who'd received an unexpected gift. Logan watched them while eating his own dessert, struck by how different this evening had become from anything he'd imagined. "Can I ask you something now?" Logan said after a few bites. "Seems only fair." "What made you say yes when Martha set this up? To meeting me, I mean." Ava wrapped her hands around her coffee mug again, that same gesture of seeking warmth or comfort. "Honestly, I almost didn't. I kept thinking about all the reasons it was a bad idea. I'm broke, I've got 2 kids, I work weird hours at the library, and I haven't been on a date since my divorce was finalized 3 years ago. The whole thing felt overwhelming? Terrifying," she corrected. "But Martha's sister Sarah works at the library with me, and she kept saying how you were this great guy who just needed someone to take a chance on him. And I thought..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I thought maybe I was that person too, someone who just needed someone else to take a chance." "Did it work?" Logan asked. "The taking a chance part?" Ava looked at her children, sticky with ketchup and chocolate cream, then at Logan with his melting ice cream and patient eyes. "I don't know yet, but we're still here, aren't we?" "We are." They finished their desserts in comfortable silence. Lila had slumped against her mother, fighting sleep with decreasing success. Noah managed to stay upright, but barely, his eyes half closed as he mechanically finished the last bites of pie. Dottie brought the check, and Logan grabbed it before Ava could protest. The total was reasonable, $43 and change for 4 people. He left $60 on the table, including a generous tip for Dottie's patient service. "You ready?" he asked Ava. She nodded, gently rousing her children and helping them slide out of the booth. Lila whimpered but didn't fully wake, and Noah shuffled along like a sleepwalker. They made their way to the door, Logan holding it open while Ava guided her drowsy children into the parking lot. The night air had cooled slightly, though the pavement still radiated the day's stored heat. Overhead, stars competed with the light pollution, only the brightest managing to shine through. They walked toward where both vehicles were parked, and Logan felt the evening winding down, the spell of shared food and conversation beginning to break. Soon, Ava would drive away with her kids, and he'd drive back to his empty house, and this strange interlude would become just another memory of something that almost was, but wasn't quite. But then Ava stopped beside her SUV and turned to face him, her hand resting on Lila's head as the child pressed against her side. "Logan." "Yeah." "Thank you for..." She gestured helplessly. "For all of this. For not walking away. For feeding my kids. For not making me feel like a complete disaster, even though I definitely am one." "You're not a disaster. You're just a person having a hard time. There's a difference." "Is there?" The question carried genuine uncertainty. "Yeah, a disaster is something that can't be fixed. A hard time is just temporary weather. It passes eventually." Ava's eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them back. "That's a nice thought." "It's not just a thought. It's true." Logan hesitated, then asked the question that had been building all evening. "Can I see you again? Not as a date necessarily, just, I don't know, coffee sometime, or another meal where hopefully nobody has a breakdown in a parking lot first." Ava looked at him for a long moment, and Logan could see her weighing the risks, calculating whether letting him into her life would cause more problems than it solved. "I'm a mess," she said finally. "A complete mess with 2 kids and barely enough money to make rent most months and a car that might die any day now. And I'm 42 and alone, and I've spent 2 years being too scared to feel anything," Logan interrupted gently. "We've all got our stuff." A smile ghosted across her face. "Fair point." She pulled her phone from her purse, unlocked it, and handed it to him. "Put your number in. I can't promise I'll be good at calling or that I won't cancel again if something comes up with the kids. But, yeah, I'd like to see you again." Logan entered his number and handed the phone back, their fingers brushing briefly. "No pressure. If you call, you call. If you don't, you don't." "That's very zen of you." "I've had 2 years to practice zen." Ava helped both kids into their car seats, buckled them carefully, then closed the door softly to avoid jarring them fully awake. She turned back to Logan one more time. "I mean it," she said. "Thank you for tonight. You didn't have to be kind, but you were anyway." "Same to you," Logan replied. "You didn't have to say yes to dinner with a stranger after the day you'd had. But you did." She climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine, it coughed twice before catching, and gave him a small wave before pulling out of the parking lot. Logan watched the taillights disappear down Morrison Street, carrying Ava and her children back toward whatever struggles waited for them at home. He stood there in the empty parking lot for a long time, listening to the distant sounds of the city, feeling something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. Logan didn't expect to hear from Ava that weekend. Friday night had felt like one of those strange, suspended moments that exist outside normal time, intense and real while happening, but fragile enough to dissolve completely once ordinary life resumed. He figured she'd wake up Saturday morning, remember she'd given her number to a stranger who'd witnessed her at her lowest, and decide that particular door was better left closed. So when his phone buzzed Sunday afternoon with an unknown number, he almost didn't check it. He was in his garage, halfway through changing the oil in his truck, his hands black with grease and his back complaining about the concrete floor. The text sat unread for 20 minutes before he finally wiped his hands clean enough to look. The message was brief. "This is Ava. Thank you again for Friday. The kids keep asking about you." Logan stared at those 2 sentences for a full minute, reading meanings into the spaces between words. She'd reached out. She hadn't disappeared. Her children were asking about him, which meant he'd made some kind of impression beyond being the strange man who bought them dinner. He typed and deleted 4 responses before settling on something simple. "Tell them I said hi. How are you doing?" The reply came faster this time. "Tired. Always tired. But okay. Better than Friday anyway." Logan leaned against his workbench, phone in hand, trying to decide how much to say, how far to push. The safe thing would be casual pleasantries, maybe a vague mention of getting coffee sometime that neither of them would follow up on. The honest thing would be different. He chose honest. "I've been thinking about what you said, about being a mess." "I don't think you're a mess. I think you're someone doing impossible things alone and somehow still managing." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "That's generous. But you saw me crying in a parking lot. I also saw you get up, get your kids fed, and keep going. That's not mess behavior. That's strength." A longer pause this time. When her response came, it felt more vulnerable. "I don't feel strong most days. I feel like I'm drowning, and nobody notices." Logan's chest tightened. He remembered that feeling, the desperate isolation of suffering privately while the world moved around you, oblivious. After his parents died, he'd shown up to work every day, completed his projects on time, smiled when expected, all while feeling like he was watching his life through thick glass that separated him from everyone else. "I notice," he typed. Then before he could second-guess himself, "Can I help? With anything? I'm decent with cars if yours needs work, or I could watch the kids sometime if you need a break. No strings, no expectations, just offering." The 3 dots appeared and stayed there for almost a minute. Logan could picture Ava staring at her phone, weighing the risks of accepting help from someone she barely knew against the exhaustion of carrying everything alone. "Why would you do that?" she finally asked. "Because 2 years ago, nobody offered me help when I needed it most. People sent casseroles and sympathy cards, but nobody said, 'What do you actually need right now?' So I'm asking you, what do you actually need? Another long pause. Then, my car makes a weird rattling sound when I accelerate. The mechanic quoted me $800 to fix it. I don't have $800. I barely have $80. Logan looked at his oil-stained hands, at the tools organized on his workbench, at the truck he maintained himself because paying mechanics was for people with money to spare. He'd learned basic auto repair from his father, who'd learned from his father, a passing down of practical knowledge that had saved Logan thousands over the years. I can look at it, he typed. Might be something simple. No charge either way. Logan, I can't ask you to... You didn't ask, I offered. There's a difference. A shorter pause this time. Why are you being so nice to me? He considered the question carefully, wanting to give her something true. Because nobody's been particularly nice to me in a long time, and I forgot how much it matters. And because your kids asked about me, which means maybe I did something right Friday night. The response came quickly. You did. Noah said you were okay for a grown-up, which is basically the highest compliment he gives anyone. Logan smiled despite himself. Tell him I'm honored. He also wants to know if you like superheroes because he has a lot of opinions about Spider-Man. I have some opinions about Spider-Man too. Tell him I'm Team Tobey Maguire. Oh God, you're one of those. Noah's gonna lose his mind. He's Team Tom Holland all the way. Then we'll have to agree to disagree. When can I look at your car? Another pause, shorter than before. Logan could almost feel Ava working through her resistance, convincing herself it was okay to accept help. Tuesday afternoon. I get off work at 3 and the library's only 10 minutes from my apartment. Tuesday works. Send me your address and I'll bring my tools. She sent the address. A complex on the east side of town, the kind of place that advertised affordable and delivered barely habitable. Logan knew the area. He'd worked construction there 5 years ago, building luxury condos that stood in stark contrast to the older, neglected buildings surrounding them. Gentrification in slow motion, pushing people like Ava further and further out. See you Tuesday, she texted. Then, after a moment, thank you. Really, you don't have to keep thanking me. I kind of do. I'm not used to people showing up. Logan understood that feeling too. He typed one more message before setting his phone down. Get used to it. Tuesday arrived wrapped in the thick heat of late August, the kind that made the air shimmer above the pavement and turned cars into ovens. Logan finished his shift at the civil engineering firm, where he spent his days reviewing site plans and permit applications, work that paid well but rarely felt meaningful. He changed out of his office clothes in the company bathroom, trading khakis and a button-down for jeans and an old t-shirt that had already survived a dozen repair jobs. His toolbox rattled in the truck bed as he navigated across town, following his phone's directions into neighborhoods that grew progressively more weathered. Chain-link fences, peeling paint, windows patched with cardboard. The apartment complex where Ava lived sat at the end of a street lined with cars in various states of disrepair, most at least a decade old, all wearing their mileage like battle scars. He found her building, a 3-story structure of faded yellow siding and rusted balcony railings, and parked beside the blue SUV he recognized from Friday night. Up close, in full daylight, the vehicle looked even worse than he'd thought. The driver's side door was dented, the rear bumper held on with wire and hope, and the tires were worn smooth enough to be dangerous. Logan was examining the tires when he heard small footsteps pounding down the exterior staircase. He turned to find Noah racing toward him, Lila trailing behind, both kids moving with the uncomplicated joy of children who hadn't yet learned to hide their excitement. You came! Noah skidded to a stop a few feet away, suddenly shy now that Logan was actually present. Said I would. Logan crouched down to their level. Hey Lila, nice to see you again. Hi. Lila twisted back and forth, making her skirt flare. We had spaghetti for dinner yesterday, and Mama let us watch a movie. That sounds fun. What movie? Moana. But Noah said it was for babies. Did not, Noah protested. I said the songs were for babies. The ocean parts were cool. The songs are the best part. Before the sibling argument could escalate, Ava appeared at the top of the stairs, descending more slowly than her children had. She looked tired but cleaner than Friday night, wearing jean shorts and a faded library t-shirt that had been washed so many times the lettering was barely visible. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, revealing the lines of exhaustion around her eyes. "Sorry," she said as she reached them. "They've been watching for you since I got home." "No need to apologize." Logan straightened. "I'm just here to look at your car." "Right, the car." Ava dug keys from her pocket and handed them over. "It mostly rattles when I'm going uphill or accelerating onto the highway. The mechanic said something about the catalytic converter, but honestly, he lost me after the first sentence." Logan unlocked the SUV and popped the hood, propping it open to reveal an engine that had clearly been neglected out of necessity rather than carelessness. The oil was dark and probably overdue for a change. The air filter looked clogged. Various belts showed wear, but none of that would cause the rattling Ava described. "Can I start it up?" he asked. "Go ahead." Logan climbed into the driver's seat, noting the worn upholstery and the way the check engine light illuminated along with half a dozen other warning indicators. He turned the key, listening carefully as the engine coughed to life. There, a distinct rattling from underneath, worse when he pressed the accelerator. He killed the engine and crawled underneath with a flashlight from his toolbox, ignoring the hot pavement against his back. The exhaust system was a patchwork of temporary fixes and rust, but the catalytic converter looked intact. The rattling was coming from farther back, the muffler, where a broken bracket had let it come loose. Logan emerged from under the SUV and found all three members of the Mitchell family watching him with expressions ranging from hopeful to worried. "Good news," he announced, brushing dirt from his shirt. "It's not your catalytic converter. It's just a broken bracket on your muffler. The whole exhaust system could use some love, but the immediate problem is simple." "How simple?" Ava's voice carried careful hope. "Simple enough that I can fix it right now if you've got about an hour. Need to run to the auto parts store for a new bracket and some hardware, maybe $20 worth of supplies. I can have you roadworthy before dinner." Ava's eyes went suspiciously bright. $20? Give or take. Definitely not $800. "That son of a—" She caught herself, glancing at her children. "That mechanic told me I needed a whole new catalytic converter." "Yeah, well, some mechanics see a single mom in a desperate situation and see dollar signs." Logan's voice hardened. "If you want, I can look everything over more thoroughly, make a list of what actually needs attention versus what can wait." "Would you? Really?" "That's why I'm here." He checked his watch. "Tell you what, I need to run to AutoZone. It's about 15 minutes round trip. You guys need anything while I'm out?" "We're good," Ava said quickly, that familiar reluctance to ask for anything. But Noah tugged on her shirt. "Mama, we're out of milk." "Noah, Mr. Logan doesn't need to—" "It's Logan, no Mr. And milk's easy." "What else?" Ava looked like she wanted to argue, but exhaustion and practicality won out. "If you're seriously offering, we could use bread, and maybe some peanut butter if it's not too expensive." "Done." Logan pulled out his phone. "Text me a full list, whatever you guys actually need, not just what you think you can ask for." "Logan, Ava." He met her eyes. "Let me help. Please." She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded slowly and pulled out her phone. Logan heard it buzz with her text as he walked toward his truck. He checked the message. Milk, whole, bread, peanut butter, pasta sauce, cheapest kind, eggs if not too expensive, cheese if you can find it on sale. "I can pay you back Friday when I get paid." He didn't bother responding to that last part. Instead, he drove to the nearest grocery store, bypassing AutoZone temporarily, and filled a cart with everything on her list, plus things she hadn't asked for. Fresh fruit that wasn't bruised, chicken breasts, real butter instead of margarine, the good pasta sauce instead of the cheapest kind, a block of decent cheddar, and a gallon of orange juice because he'd noticed both kids eyeing it in the store, but Ava steering them past. The total came to $63. Logan paid without hesitating. Then he swung by AutoZone for the muffler bracket and hardware before heading back to the apartment complex. Noah and Lila were drawing with sidewalk chalk on the cracked pavement near the SUV when Logan pulled up. Ava sat on the stairs watching them, and her expression shifted from peaceful to confused when she saw Logan unloading 4 full grocery bags from his truck. "I said milk and bread," she called down, standing quickly. "You did. You also said a bunch of other stuff." Logan carried the bags to the base of the stairs, and I figured if I was already at the store, might as well be efficient. Ava came down the stairs and peered into the bags, her face cycling through several emotions. Logan, this is too much. It's groceries. It's more than I asked for. Yeah, well, your list was too short. He kept his tone light, non-confrontational. Look, I was at the store anyway. Food's not a big deal. It is to me. Her voice had gone quiet, almost brittle. I can't just... Mama, is that real cheese? Noah had abandoned his chalk to investigate the bags, and his excitement was uncomplicated, without the adult baggage of pride and debt. It is, Logan confirmed. And there's some apples in there that looked pretty good. I love apples. Lila appeared, and both kids began exploring the bags with the enthusiasm of Christmas morning. Ava's face was doing something complicated, caught between gratitude and the kind of shame that came from needing help so badly that groceries from a near stranger felt like a gift. Take them inside, Logan said gently, nodding toward the kids and the bags. Get stuff put away before anything warm spoils. I'll work on your car. Logan, Later. Car first. Conversation later. She looked like she wanted to argue, but Noah was already grabbing bags, and Lila was trying to carry one that was clearly too heavy for her. Ava caught it before she dropped it, then herded both children toward the stairs, glancing back once at Logan with an expression he couldn't quite read. He got to work on the SUV, grateful for something concrete to do with his hands. The muffler bracket was straightforward. Remove the broken piece, install the new one, secure it properly with the hardware he'd bought. But once he was under the vehicle, he started noticing other problems. The oil pan had a slow leak. One of the brake lines looked suspicious. The transmission fluid was dark and probably overdue for service. Logan worked methodically, fixing what he could and making mental notes of what needed attention soon versus what could wait. The sun beat down on the parking lot, turning the asphalt into a griddle, but he barely noticed. There was something meditative about mechanical work, the logic of systems that could be diagnosed and repaired, problems that had solutions if you just knew where to look. He was checking the brake pads when small shadows fell across his workspace. Noah and Lila had returned, watching him with curious eyes. "What you doing?" Lila asked. "Checking your mom's brakes, making sure they work right." "Mama says the car's dying," Noah offered matter-of-factly. "She says we might need a new one, but we can't afford it." "Afford it," Logan corrected gently. "And your car's not dying, it just needs some attention, like when you get sick and need medicine to feel better." Noah considered this. "Can you make it better?" "I can make it safer. Better's going to take some time and parts." Logan slid out from under the SUV and sat up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But for now, I can make sure it's not going to leave you guys stranded." "Are you a car doctor?" Lila asked. "Something like that. More like a car mechanic, which is sort of the same thing." "My friend Sarah's dad is a dentist," Lila informed him, with the randomness of 4-year-old conversation. "He looks at teeth. I bet that's important work." "Are you going to be our dad?" The question came from Noah, delivered with the blunt directness that children possessed before they learned to dance around difficult topics. Logan froze, caught completely off guard. That's not... Your mom and I just met." "I know, but you're fixing our car and you bought us groceries and you had dinner with us." Noah rattled off the evidence like a prosecutor making his case. "That's what dads do, right?" "Some dads do those things," Logan said carefully, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. "But I'm just a friend helping out." "We don't have a dad." This from Lila, delivered with the matter-of-fact sadness of a child stating an obvious truth. "He lives far away and doesn't call." "I'm sorry about that." Logan meant it. "That must be hard. It's okay. We have Mama." Noah's loyalty was fierce and immediate. "She takes care of us." "She does a really good job," Logan agreed. "Your mom works very hard to take care of you guys." "Sometimes she cries at night," Noah said quietly, and Logan saw the weight that this 7-year-old carried, the burden of awareness, of noticing suffering he was too young to fix. "She thinks we don't hear, but I do." Logan's chest tightened. He wanted to say something meaningful, something that would ease this child's worry, but platitudes felt insufficient. Instead, he offered honesty. Sometimes grown-ups cry when things are hard. That doesn't mean your mom isn't strong or that she can't take care of you. It just means she's dealing with a lot. Do you cry sometimes? Lila asked with a 4-year-old's lack of filter. Sometimes, especially after my parents died. I cried a lot then. Do you still miss them? Noah's question was gentle, genuinely curious rather than invasive. Every day. But it hurts less than it used to. Time helps with that. The kids processed this information solemnly. Then Lila reached out and patted Logan's arm with a gentleness that seemed impossible from such a small person. It's okay to be sad sometimes, she announced with absolute certainty. Mama says feelings are okay to feel. Your mama's right. Logan found himself smiling despite the heaviness of the conversation. She sounds pretty smart. She knows almost everything, Noah confirmed. Except math homework. She's bad at math homework. Most adults are, Logan assured him, which earned a small smile. Footsteps on the stairs announced Ava's return. She carried a glass of water beaded with condensation, which she handed to Logan. Thought you might be thirsty. It's brutal out here. Thanks. Logan drank gratefully, the cold water almost shocking after the heat. Car's done, by the way. Muffler's secure and I checked over everything else. Everything else? You've got a few things that need attention soon. Oil change, transmission service, that brake line I mentioned. But nothing immediately dangerous. You're safe to drive. Ava's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. Seriously, how much do I owe you for the part and your time? $23 for the parts, nothing for time. Logan. Ava. He cut her off gently. I spent 2 hours on a Tuesday afternoon fixing a bracket and checking safety issues. I'm not charging you for that. But your time is worth... My time was going to be spent sitting alone in my house watching TV I don't care about. This was more useful. He gathered his tools, loading them back into his toolbox. Plus, I got to hang out with these two, and they taught me important things about Spider-Man movies. Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man, Lila announced, apparently having forgotten her previous focus on Moana. We're still debating that, Logan said diplomatically, though Noah looked vindicated. Ava watched this exchange with an expression Logan was getting better at reading, a mix of gratitude, confusion, and something approaching hope that she seemed almost afraid to acknowledge. Will you stay for dinner? The question came out rushed, like she'd asked before she could talk herself out of it. It's nothing fancy, just spaghetti, but you bought most of the ingredients anyway, so it seems only fair. Logan should probably say no. He'd already spent half his day here, had already crossed several boundaries between stranger and something more. Staying for dinner would mean continuing to weave himself into their lives, making it harder to extract himself later when, things got complicated. But he looked at Noah's cautiously hopeful expression, at Lila bouncing on her toes with excitement, at Ava standing there trying to offer something in return for help she hadn't asked for but desperately needed, and found he couldn't refuse. Spaghetti sounds great, he heard himself say. The apartment was small and showed its age in all the familiar ways: thin carpeting that had been cheap a decade ago, walls that needed paint, appliances that were one breakdown away from irreparable. But it was clean, organized with the fierce determination of someone fighting against chaos with limited resources. Children's artwork covered one wall, held up with tape that had yellowed with time. A bookshelf overflowed with library books, their spines carefully aligned. Toys were contained in plastic bins, stored neatly in corners. It was a home built on love rather than money, and somehow that made it more real than his own house with its empty rooms and perfect furniture that no one ever sat on. Noah immediately wanted to show Logan his room, a space barely large enough for a twin bed and a small dresser, but decorated with drawings and superhero posters that created an entire universe in 8 by 10 feet. Lila's side of the room was separated by an invisible boundary marked with stuffed animals and a child's fierce sense of territory. This is my Spider-Man collection, Noah announced proudly, pointing to an array of dollar store action figures arranged on his dresser. I have 6 different ones. Logan examined each figure with appropriate seriousness. That's impressive. Which one's your favorite? Noah picked up a figure with one arm slightly melted, probably from being too close to a heat source. This one. He's been through a lot, but he still fights bad guys. The metaphor wasn't lost on Logan. This 7-year-old understood resilience in ways most adults never would, had learned survival as his primary childhood lesson. "Want to see my ballet dress?" Lila asked, not waiting for an answer before pulling a wrinkled pink tutu from her drawer. "I'm going to be a ballerina when I grow up." "I bet you'll be a great ballerina." You want to see me dance?" "Lila, maybe Logan doesn't—" Ava had appeared in the doorway, but Logan waved her off. "I'd love to see you dance." Lila needed no further encouragement. She began twirling and leaping around the small space with more enthusiasm than technique, narrating her own performance. "And now the princess dances across the stage, and everyone thinks she's beautiful." Noah rolled his eyes with the superiority of an older sibling. "That's not real ballet. Real ballet has positions and stuff." "Is too real ballet. Kids." Ava's warning carried the weight of a mother who'd stopped this argument 100 times. "Why don't you both come help with dinner instead of fighting?" They trooped back to the kitchen, really just an alcove with a stove, refrigerator, and minimal counter space. Logan found himself drafted into sauce-stirring duty while Ava boiled water for pasta and the kids set the table, a card table with mismatched chairs that served as dining room furniture. There was something deeply peaceful about this domestic choreography, the simple rhythm of meal preparation. Noah counted out forks carefully. Lila folded napkins with elaborate precision. Ava moved efficiently in the small space, and Logan found himself falling into the pattern naturally, asking where things went, accepting directions, existing as part of a team rather than an isolated individual. The spaghetti was basic but good. Pasta with jarred sauce enhanced by Italian seasoning and garlic powder served with the bread Logan had bought. They ate crowded around the card table, knees bumping, passing the bread basket, and Logan realized he couldn't remember the last time a meal had felt this comfortable. "So tell me about the library," he said to Ava between bites. "How'd you end up working there?" "Community college," she said. "I was studying to be a teacher, but that was—" She glanced at her kids. "That was before life got complicated. Ended up dropping out after Lila was born, needed something with stable hours and benefits. The library was hiring for circulation desk staff. It's not what I imagined doing, but I love it. Love being around books, helping people find what they need." "She knows where every book is," Noah added proudly. "People ask her stuff and she just knows." "Not everything," Ava corrected, but she was smiling. "But I've gotten pretty good at the Dewey Decimal System." "What about you?" This from Noah, his wariness having gradually dissolved over the course of the evening. "What do you do?" "I'm a civil engineer. Mostly I review construction plans, make sure buildings are safe, and meet regulations." "That sounds boring," Lila announced with characteristic 4-year-old honesty. "Lila wrote—" "It kind of is," Logan admitted, which made Lila giggle. "But it pays the bills, and sometimes I get to work on interesting projects." "Have you built any skyscrapers?" Noah's eyes went wide with possibility. "Not built, but I've reviewed plans for a few tall buildings. Mostly I work on smaller stuff, apartment complexes, office buildings, that kind of thing." They talked through the rest of dinner, conversations ranging from serious to silly. Lila told an elaborate story about a butterfly she'd seen at daycare. Noah explained his summer reading program at the library in meticulous detail. Ava relaxed incrementally, some of the perpetual tension leaving her shoulders. After dinner, Logan helped clear dishes while Ava ran bathwater for the kids. Their bedtime routine was efficient and practiced: baths, pajamas, teeth brushing, a story read in the tiny shared bedroom. Logan sat in the living room, listening to Ava's voice reading something about dragons and brave knights, and felt that same unexpected warmth he'd experienced at Mel's place. Eventually, Ava emerged, pulling the bedroom door mostly closed behind her. "They're down?" "Well, downish. Noah will read with his flashlight for another hour, and Lila will reorganize her stuffed animals 3 times before actually sleeping, but they're in bed at least." "They're good kids," Logan said. "They really are." Ava sat on the other end of the small couch, tucking her feet under her. "I don't know what I did to deserve them, but they're the best thing that ever happened to me." "You're a good mom. Anyone can see that." "I don't always feel like a good mom. Most days I feel like I'm failing them in a dozen different ways." She picked at a loose thread on the couch cushion. "Failing to provide enough, to be enough, to give them the life they deserve. You're giving them love and stability and presence. That's more than a lot of kids get. Love doesn't pay for school supplies. Presence doesn't fix a dying car. No, but money without love creates its own kind of poverty. Logan shifted to face her more directly. I knew plenty of kids growing up who had every material thing but parents who were never around, never present. They would have traded the stuff for attention in a heartbeat. Ava considered this, then sighed. I know you're right. It's just hard when your kids ask for things you can't afford, when you're choosing between gas money and groceries, when you're one car breakdown away from losing everything. Is it really that close? Logan asked gently. Closer than I want to admit. She pulled her feet tighter against herself, a defensive posture. I'm behind on rent. Not catastrophically behind, but enough that my landlord sent a warning notice last week. My ex's child support check was late again, which threw off my whole budget. And if my car had actually needed $800 in repairs. She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Logan sat with that information, understanding now why she'd been crying in the parking lot Friday night. It wasn't just about the canceled date or childcare falling through. It was about being stretched so impossibly thin that any disruption threatened to tear everything apart. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Sure. What's your rent? She named a figure that made his jaw tighten. Too high for this neighborhood, this apartment, but probably the best she could afford with bad credit and limited options. He did quick math in his head, comparing it to his own mortgage on a 3-bedroom house he barely used. And you're how far behind? 2 weeks. I need to have it by Friday or he's starting eviction proceedings. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing weather rather than the potential loss of her home. I'll have it. My paycheck comes through Thursday night, and I'm picking up some extra weekend hours. It'll be tight, but I'll make it work. What if you didn't have to make it work alone? Ava's head snapped up, wariness flooding her features. Logan, no, absolutely not. You've already done too much. I have a 3-bedroom house that I live in by myself, he continued, speaking over her protests. My mortgage is paid off. I have savings I don't use, and you're drowning in a situation that I could help with. No, I can't accept money from you. We barely know each other. Then get to know me. Let me help while you're getting to know me. Logan leaned forward, trying to make her understand. I'm not offering this because I think you're a charity case or because I pity you. I'm offering because I have resources I'm not using, and you need resources you don't have. That's just math. It's not math. It's complicated. Ava stood up, pacing the small living room. What happens when you realize I'm just a broke single mom with too much baggage? What happens when you meet someone else, someone easier, someone whose life isn't a constant crisis? Do I just end up more dependent on someone who's going to leave eventually anyway? I'm not leaving. The words came out with more certainty than Logan expected. And I'm not looking for someone easier. Easier hasn't been interesting me much lately. You say that now and... Ava. He stood too, moving to stand in her path, making her look at him. 3 days ago, I was a guy whose biggest concern was whether to microwave leftover pasta or order pizza for dinner. Then I met you and your kids, and I remembered what it feels like to matter to someone, to be part of something beyond my own isolated existence. You're not a burden. You're a reminder that I'm still capable of connecting with people. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to accept help. I don't know how to trust that it won't disappear or come with strings I can't pay. No strings, Logan said firmly. I promise. And if I do anything that makes you uncomfortable, you can tell me to back off, and I will. But let me help with your rent this month. Let me make sure you and your kids have a roof over your heads while you catch up. And what do I give you in return? The question came out almost desperately. How do I possibly... Keep being honest with me, Logan interrupted. Keep letting me be around you and your kids. Keep having spaghetti dinners and letting me fix your car and not pretending everything's fine when it isn't. That's what you give me in return. Authenticity in a world where everyone pretends. Ava stared at him for a long moment, tears streaming silently down her face. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. Okay. Okay? Okay, you can help with rent this month. But I'm paying you back. Eventually. Even if it takes forever. Deal. Logan pulled out his phone. What's your landlord's information? I'll send it first thing tomorrow. She gave him the details with visible reluctance, each word seeming to cost her something. When he'd entered everything into his banking app, she sat back down heavily, looking exhausted and relieved and frightened all at once. "This is insane," she murmured. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just two people helping each other in different ways. How am I helping you?" Logan sat beside her again, close enough to feel the warmth of her presence. "You're giving me a reason to show up somewhere other than work. You're reminding me that loneliness isn't a sustainable life plan. And your kids," he smiled, "your kids ask me about Spider-Man and show me their toys and look at me like I might actually matter. You have no idea how much I needed that." Ava leaned her head back against the couch, closing her eyes. "You're either the kindest person I've ever met or completely crazy." "Probably some combination." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the apartment settling into evening quiet. Through the bedroom door, Logan could hear Noah's whispered reading voice and Lila's soft singing to her stuffed animals. "I should probably go," he said eventually, though he was reluctant to leave this small pocket of warmth. "Let you get some rest." "Yeah." But Ava didn't move immediately. "Logan?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for all of it. The car, the groceries, the rent, just being here. No one's been here for me in a really long time." "Get used to it," he said again, echoing his text from Sunday. "I'm not good at a lot of things, but I'm good at showing up." He stood, gathering his keys and phone. Ava walked him to the door, and for a moment they just stood there in the small entryway, neither quite ready to end the evening. "Can I see you this weekend?" Logan asked. "Maybe take the kids somewhere fun, zoo or park or something?" "They'd love that." Ava's smile was tired but real. "Fair warning, Lila has endless energy and Noah asks approximately 3,000 questions. I'll prepare accordingly." "And Logan?" She touched his arm lightly. "I meant what I said. I'm paying you back for the rent." "I know, but for now just focus on keeping your home and your kids safe. Everything else can wait." He left before she could argue further, walking down the exterior stairs into the parking lot where his truck sat beside her now functional SUV. The night air had cooled slightly, carrying the distant sounds of the city. Traffic, sirens, life continuing its complicated patterns. Logan sat in his truck for a moment before starting the engine, processing everything that had happened. 4 days ago, he'd been preparing for a blind date that felt like an obligation. Now, he was financially supporting a woman he barely knew, had spent his evening fixing her car and eating spaghetti with her children, and was already planning their next meeting. It should have felt overwhelming or foolish or like he was moving too fast into something dangerous. Instead, it felt like the first right thing he'd done in 2 years. The pattern established itself gradually, almost imperceptibly. The way roots grow beneath soil before anyone notices the plant above ground has strengthened. Logan found himself at Ava's apartment 3 evenings that first week, then 4 the next. He'd show up after work with his toolbox or groceries or sometimes just himself, and somehow there was always something that needed doing. The leaky faucet in the bathroom that Ava had been catching with a bowl for 6 months. The loose railing on the stairs that the landlord kept promising to fix. The bedroom window that stuck so badly Ava couldn't open it, trapping stale air inside through the summer heat. Small repairs that took Logan an hour, but saved Ava from choosing between fixing them herself with skills she didn't have or living with problems that compounded daily stress. He never announced his visits in advance, just texted casual questions. "Need anything from the hardware store?" Or "Picking up Chinese food, want some?" Questions that gave Ava easy exits if she needed space, but invitations that suggested he was thinking of her regardless. She always said yes. The kids adapted to his presence faster than Ava did. Noah started leaving his superhero drawings on the kitchen counter for Logan to find, carefully detailed scenes of Spider-Man saving various citizens from improbable disasters. Lila appointed herself Logan's official helper, following him around during repairs with a plastic toolbox filled with toys, narrating his work like a documentary filmmaker. "And now Mr. Logan is fixing the door," she'd announced to an invisible audience. "He's using a screwdriver because the door was being bad." "The door wasn't being bad," Logan would correct gently, playing along. "It just needed some oil so it wouldn't squeak." "Bad squeaky door," Lila would conclude with the absolute certainty of a 4-year-old's logic. Ava watched these interactions with an expression Logan was learning to read, part gratitude, part fear, like she was waiting for the moment when reality reasserted itself and this temporary kindness evaporated. She'd thank him constantly, obsessively, until Logan finally had to address it directly one evening after the kids were in bed. "You don't have to keep thanking me," he said, setting down the wrench he'd been using to tighten the loose cabinet handles in her kitchen. "I know, I just—" Ava gestured helplessly from where she sat at the card table, laptop open to a spreadsheet that probably tracked every dollar she didn't have. "You keep doing all this stuff, and I don't know how else to acknowledge it." "Acknowledge it by letting me keep doing it without making it weird." Logan wiped his hands on a rag. "If you thank me one more time for fixing a cabinet, I'm going to start breaking things just so you have to stop." That earned him a small smile. "You wouldn't. Try me. I've got a whole toolbox of potential sabotage equipment." "That's deeply concerning from an engineering perspective." "Yeah, well, I'm off the clock." Logan sat across from her, glancing at the spreadsheet on her screen, rows of numbers in red and black, a careful accounting of survival. "How's it looking?" Ava closed the laptop quickly, that familiar embarrassment crossing her face. "Better. Your help with rent meant I could actually pay some other bills on time for once. Sent my ex 3 increasingly angry texts about his late child support, and he finally came through yesterday, so we're— stable isn't the right word, but we're not actively drowning." "That's something." "It's more than something, it's everything." She opened the laptop again, as if forcing herself to be transparent. "I made a budget, a real one, not just the fantasy version where I pretend unexpected expenses don't exist. If nothing goes catastrophically wrong for 3 months, I can actually start saving a little, build an emergency fund, maybe fix the car properly instead of band-aiding it. That's good planning. It only works if I stick to it. And if you—" She stopped, biting her lip. "If I what?" "If you stop paying for things." The words came out rushed, like she'd been holding them back. "The groceries, the dinner at Mel's, all the little stuff you pick up while you're at the store anyway. It's adding up, Logan. And I know you say it's no big deal, but it is to me. I need to be able to support my kids on my own." Logan leaned back in the cheap plastic chair, understanding the deeper concern beneath her words. "You're worried about depending on me." "I'm terrified of depending on you," she corrected. "I depended on my ex, and when that fell apart, I had nothing. No degree, no career, 2 kids, and no way to support them beyond minimum wage jobs. I swore I'd never put myself in that position again." "I'm not your ex." "I know, but that doesn't mean you won't leave eventually." She said it without accusation, just stating what she believed to be inevitable truth. People leave, especially when things get hard or complicated or just boring, and I can't let my kids get attached to someone who's going to disappear. "Is that what you think I'm doing? Getting ready to disappear?" "I think you're a good man who's lonely and found a project that makes you feel useful. But projects end, Logan. And when this one does, when you realize we're not a fun distraction, but an actual complicated reality." "Stop." Logan's voice was firm, but not harsh. "Stop telling me what I'm thinking or feeling. Stop assuming you know when I'm going to leave. I'm 42 years old, Ava. I know the difference between a project and—" He paused, searching for the right word. "And whatever this is." "What is this?" The question came out quietly, vulnerably. Logan considered carefully, wanting to give her something honest. "I don't know exactly, but it's not charity, and it's not a project. I like being here. I like your kids. I like you. I like feeling like I'm part of something instead of just existing in parallel to life. That's not going to just stop because it's Tuesday or because the novelty wore off." "How can you be sure?" "How can you be sure of anything?" Logan spread his hands. "You can't. That's the risk of letting people in. But I'm here right now, and I'm planning to be here tomorrow and the day after that. At some point, you're going to have to decide whether you're willing to trust that." Ava stared at her spreadsheet, her jaw working like she was fighting between competing impulses. Finally, she looked up. "Okay, but I need boundaries." "Okay. I need to pay for my own groceries and my kids' stuff. You can fix things around the apartment because the landlord's useless and I genuinely don't know how, but the financial stuff, I need to handle that myself." Even if it means you're struggling? Especially then. Her voice was steady now, certain. I need to know I can do this on my own. Otherwise, I'm just trading one dependency for another. Logan wanted to argue that accepting help wasn't the same as dependency, that there was a difference between supporting someone and controlling them. But he could see this was a line Ava needed to draw, a boundary that meant something deeper than money. All right, he agreed. I'll back off the financial stuff. But I'm still fixing your sink if it breaks. Deal. She closed the laptop with finality. And Logan? Thank you for understanding. You just thanked me again. That wasn't for fixing something, that was for listening. In that case, you're welcome. Saturday arrived with the thick humidity that August delivered like a punishment in this part of the country. Logan picked up Ava and the kids at 9 in the morning, his truck's air conditioning working overtime against the oppressive heat. The plan was the zoo, Noah's choice after considerable debate with Lila, who'd wanted the Children's Museum until being won over by the promise of seeing real lions. The drive across town gave Logan his first real glimpse of Ava outside the context of crisis management. She sat in the passenger seat wearing jean shorts and a sundress top, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, singing along quietly to the radio while Noah and Lila bickered companionably in the back seat about which animals they wanted to see first. Elephants, Lila insisted. Reptile house, Noah countered. They have a real python. Pythons are scary. They're cool. Scary and cool, Logan interjected diplomatically. We can see both. That's at least an hour, Ava warned. Each. They don't move fast through exhibits when they're interested. Good thing I cleared my schedule. The zoo was predictably crowded with weekend families, strollers forming mobile obstacles, and children's voices creating a constant backdrop of excitement and whining. Logan paid for their admission before Ava could protest. This was his invitation, he argued, which technically didn't violate their grocery agreement, and they plunged into the organized chaos. Noah wanted to read every informational plaque, absorbing facts with the intensity of a scholar. Did you know elephants can recognize themselves in mirrors? That means they're self-aware like humans. I did not know that, Logan admitted, genuinely interested. And they remember things for years and years. They have good memories for family. There was something wistful in how Noah said that last part, and Logan wondered if the boy was thinking about his absent father, about family that forgot rather than remembered. Lila was less interested in facts and more interested in physical engagement, pressing her face against glass barriers and making elaborate plans for which animals she'd take home if she could. I want the baby monkey. I'd teach him to do tricks, and he could sleep in my bed. Monkeys are wild animals, honey, Ava explained for probably the 10th time that morning. They're not pets. But he's so little and cute. So are you, and you're not a pet either. Logan found himself cataloging these small moments. The patient way Ava answered her children's endless questions, the practiced efficiency with which she distributed snacks and water bottles, the constant spatial awareness that kept track of 2 kids in a crowd. Single parenting as endurance sport. You want me to take her for a while? He offered as they approached the big cat exhibit. Lila had been asking to be carried for the last 10 minutes, and Ava looked tired despite it being only 11 in the morning. You don't have to. I know, but my legs are fresher than yours. He crouched down to Lila's level. Want a shoulder ride? Her eyes went wide. Really? Really, but you have to hold on tight. Logan hoisted her up, settling her small weight on his shoulders with her hands gripping his hair perhaps tighter than necessary. She squealed with delight at the new vantage point, high enough now to see over the crowds. I'm so tall, she announced to everyone and no one. Look, Mama, I'm a giant. Ava's expression did something complicated, a smile mixed with something that looked almost like pain. Logan caught her eye and raised an eyebrow in silent question. But she just shook her head and turned her attention back to Noah, who was pulling her toward the lion enclosure. They spent the afternoon moving from exhibit to exhibit with the non-linear logic of children's interests. The reptile house, where Noah pressed his nose to the glass and Lila hid behind Logan's legs. The penguin pool, where both kids dissolved into giggles at the birds waddling. The gift shop, where Logan, despite Ava's protests, bought them each one small stuffed animal because they'd been good and because he could. You're spoiling them, Ava said as they walked toward the exit, both kids clutching their new toys. A monkey for Lila, a snake for Noah. Little bit, that okay? I don't... She stopped walking and her eyes were suspiciously bright. Nobody's ever just bought my kids things because they wanted to make them happy. My ex always made everything transactional. Even presents came with strings. And my parents... She shook her head. They wrote me off when I got pregnant at 19, said I was throwing my life away. Logan stopped too, letting the kids wander a few feet ahead toward a water fountain. Their loss. That's generous. It's true. Those kids are incredible, and you're raising them to be good humans despite everything working against you. If your parents can't see that, they're the ones missing out. Thank you. She said it quietly, almost to herself. For today. For all of it. You're thanking me again. This time it's allowed because we're in public and you can't threaten to break my stuff. Fair point. They loaded the exhausted kids back into the truck, both children asleep before Logan even pulled out of the parking lot. The drive back was quiet, the radio playing low, and Logan found himself hyper-aware of Ava beside him. The way she'd tucked her feet up on the seat, the small smile playing at her lips as she glanced back at her sleeping children. They had a good day, she said softly. Yeah, they did. So did I. She turned to look at him. I can't remember the last time I just enjoyed something, without worrying about money or schedules or all the logistics that usually consume every thought. Thank you for that. You're welcome, and for the record, I had a good day too. Even with the 2 hours in the reptile house? Especially the 2 hours in the reptile house. Noah's enthusiasm for pythons is genuinely impressive. Ava laughed, and the sound felt like a reward. They fell into a rhythm over the following weeks, a domestic pattern that felt both natural and surreal. Logan would show up 3 or 4 evenings a week, timing his arrivals for after the dinner rush when Ava was trying to wrangle homework and bath time. He'd sit with Noah at the card table, helping with math problems that had frustrated them both. Who designed these word problems? Logan would mutter, making Noah giggle, while Ava got Lila cleaned up and ready for bed. Sometimes he'd stay after the kids were asleep, and he and Ava would talk in the small living room, conversation ranging from shallow to deep, with equal comfort. She told him about her failed marriage, how she'd met her ex at 19, gotten pregnant at 20, married because it seemed like the right thing to do, and divorced by 25 when he decided fatherhood was too limiting for his ambitions. He wanted the idea of a family, she explained one evening, curled into the corner of the couch with tea she'd let go cold. The Instagram version with cute photos and holiday cards, but the actual work of it, the diapers and sleepless nights and constant sacrifice, he couldn't handle that. So he found reasons to work late, then to work out of town, then to just work somewhere else entirely. Did he ever try with them? With Noah and Lila? At first, for maybe the first year with Noah, he was engaged, excited even. But then it got hard. The crying, the exhaustion, the way babies need everything all the time, and he just checked out. Ava stared into her mug. By the time Lila came along, he'd already emotionally left. When I filed for divorce, he seemed almost relieved. That's his loss. I know, but try telling that to Noah, who still wonders why his dad doesn't call. Or to Lila, who barely remembers him but knows she's supposed to have a father somewhere. Her voice cracked slightly. How do you explain to your kids that their dad chose absence over them? Logan didn't have an answer for that, so he offered presence instead. Sitting with her in the quiet, letting her pain exist without trying to fix it. She asked about his parents sometimes, and he found himself sharing memories he'd kept sealed away for 2 years. His mother's terrible cooking that everyone pretended was good. His father's obsessive organization of the garage, every tool in its designated spot. The way they'd still held hands watching TV after 40 years of marriage, casual affection that Logan had taken for granted until it was gone. They would have liked you, he said one night, surprising himself with the admission. My mom especially, she always wanted me to find someone substantial. That was her word, substantial, someone with depth. I don't feel very substantial most days, I feel pretty close to hollow. Hollow would have given up already. You're still fighting. Fighting implies I might win. I'm just surviving. Same thing, different perspective. The weekends became their time intentionally. Logan would pick them up Saturday mornings, earlier now, since Noah and Lila had learned to wake with the sun in anticipation, and they'd go somewhere free or cheap. Public parks where Lila could practice her ballet on the grass, and Noah could explore the playground equipment with the careful precision of an engineer in training. The public library where Ava worked, coming in on her day off to show the kids her favorite sections, and introduce Logan to her coworkers who'd heard too much about him already. "So you're the mystery man," Sarah, Martha's sister, said with a knowing smile. "Martha said you were good people. Martha gives me too much credit. Martha's usually right about people." One Saturday, they went to the farmer's market, and Logan watched Ava carefully count change for vegetables while declining the more expensive items despite clearly wanting them. He waited until she was distracted by the kids at a booth selling honey, then circled back and bought the things she'd passed on: fresh berries, good cheese, bread from a local bakery that cost 3 times what the grocery store version did. She caught him loading them into his truck, and her face cycled through several emotions before landing on exasperated affection. "You're incorrigible." "I'm efficient. You wanted them. Someone should buy them." "We had a deal about the grocery thing." "This isn't groceries. It's farmer's market. Completely different category." "That's a technicality." "I live by technicalities. I'm an engineer." She wanted to argue. He could see it, but Noah and Lila were running back with sticky hands from free samples, and the moment passed. Later, though, when they'd unpacked everything at her apartment and the kids were occupied with a movie, Ava pulled him aside. "I need you to understand something," she said, her voice serious. "Every time you do stuff like this, buy things I specifically decided I couldn't afford, it reminds me that I can't provide for my kids the way I want to. I know you mean well, but it makes me feel small, inadequate." Logan's chest tightened. "That's the last thing I want." "I know, but intentions don't change impact." She crossed her arms, not defensively, but protectively. "I need to feel capable, like I'm the one taking care of my kids, even if it means we have less." "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't think about it that way." "Thank you." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "And I know I'm probably being too sensitive. My ex used money to control things, to make me feel dependent. So now I'm hyper-aware of it, maybe too aware. No, you're right to have boundaries. I'll respect them better. Appreciate that." She managed a small smile. "You're easy to train." Years of practice taking direction from engineers with control issues. "Are you calling me a control freak? Would I do that?" "Yes." Immediately. They were both smiling now. The tension diffused, but Logan filed the conversation away as important. Ava's independence wasn't stubbornness or pride. It was survival instinct, learned through painful experience. Respecting that meant respecting her. September arrived with its false promise of cooling weather, summer's heat persisting despite the calendar's insistence otherwise. Noah started second grade with a backpack Logan had secretly paid for when Ava mentioned needing a new one, a boundary violation he justified as educational necessity, though he didn't mention it. Lila began pre-K with elaborate daily reports of what everyone wore and who said what and which crayons were the best colors. The school routine added new complexity to Ava's schedule: drop-offs and pickups, homework and packed lunches, the endless small demands of parenting school-aged children. Logan adjusted his own schedule, leaving work earlier to help with pickup, when Ava's library hours ran late, sitting with Noah through increasingly complex homework while Ava got dinner together. "You don't have to do this," she'd say, but with decreasing conviction. "I know. I want to." And he did. Somewhere in the 8 weeks since that parking lot encounter, Logan had stopped questioning his involvement and started simply living it. He looked forward to the evenings at Ava's apartment, to the controlled chaos of kids and dinner and bedtime routines. His own house felt empty now in a way it hadn't before, the silence oppressive rather than peaceful. Martha noticed the change at work. "You're different," she observed one afternoon, ambushing him at the coffee maker. "Lighter, somehow." "Just sleeping better." "That's not sleep, that's—" She studied him with the assessment of someone who'd known him for years. "That's happiness." "So, things are going well with Ava?" "Yeah, really well. She's good people. They all are, her and those kids." "I know." Are you being careful? At his confused look, Martha elaborated. I mean, emotionally. You've been alone a long time, Logan. Sometimes when we're lonely, we grab onto the first thing that feels like connection, even if it's not sustainable. This isn't that. You sure? Because from what Sarah tells me, you're basically living there half the week, playing house with a woman you barely know and kids who aren't yours. Logan felt defensive anger rise but pushed it down. Martha meant well, was just worried in the way friends worry. I know it looks fast, maybe it is, but it doesn't feel temporary. It feels right. Okay, Martha softened. Just protect yourself. And protect them too. Those kids have already been through enough abandonment. I'm not abandoning anyone. Not intentionally. But life happens, Logan. What if this doesn't work out? What if you realize 6 months from now that you're not ready for instant family? Then I'd be wrong about myself, but I don't think I am. Martha squeezed his shoulder gently. I hope you're right. I really do. The conversation stayed with Logan, though, raising questions he'd been avoiding. What was he doing exactly? Where was this going? He and Ava hadn't defined their relationship beyond friends, hadn't discussed exclusivity or future plans or any of the typical relationship frameworks. They simply existed together, day by day, and Logan had been content with that ambiguity. But maybe ambiguity was unfair to everyone involved. He brought it up one evening after the kids were asleep, when he and Ava were cleaning up dinner dishes in her tiny kitchen. She was washing, he was drying, and the domestic rhythm felt comfortable enough to make difficult conversations easier. Can I ask you something? Sure. Ava handed him a plate. What are we doing, you and me? Her hand stilled in the soapy water. What do you mean? I mean, I'm here 4 nights a week. I help with your kids. We spend weekends together, but we've never actually discussed what this is. Does it need to be something defined? Maybe. I don't know. Logan set down the plate he'd been drying. I just want to make sure we're on the same page, that I'm not, overstepping or assuming things you're not assuming. Ava pulled her hands from the water, drying them slowly on a towel while she seemed to gather her thoughts. Honestly, I've been trying not to think about it too hard, because when I do think about it, I get scared. Scared of what? Scared that this is too good to last, that you're going to wake up one day and realize you signed up for way more complexity than you wanted, that my kids are going to get their hearts broken when you leave. She met his eyes. I'm scared I'm already in too deep to protect myself when it falls apart. What if it doesn't fall apart? Everything falls apart eventually, Logan. That's just life. Not everything. He moved closer, close enough to see the exhaustion and fear and fragile hope in her face. Some things get stronger, build on themselves, become something lasting. You sound very certain about that. I'm certain about you, about them, about wanting to be here. Logan took a breath, committing. I'm certain I'm falling in love with you, Ava, and I'm certain I already love those kids. So whatever this is, it's not casual for me. It's not temporary. It's real. Ava's eyes filled with tears. The good kind this time, he thought. Hoped. She stepped forward and kissed him, soft and tentative and tasting like hope. When they broke apart, she was crying and smiling simultaneously. I'm falling for you too, have been for weeks. But I didn't want to say it, because saying it makes it real, and real things can hurt you. Yeah, they can. Logan pulled her close, feeling her warmth against him. But isn't that better than nothing? Than staying safe and alone? Ask me again in a year. I will. They stood in her tiny kitchen holding each other, and through the thin walls Logan could hear Noah's sleep-talking and Lila's soft snoring, and outside cars passed and neighbors argued and life continued its messy progress, and none of it mattered as much as this moment. This choice to try, to risk, to build something real despite all the reasons it might not work. The weeks after that kitchen confession moved differently than before, weighted with acknowledged feeling rather than careful ambiguity. Logan and Ava still maintained separate households, her apartment with its peeling paint and his house with its empty rooms, but the emotional boundary between them had dissolved into something more honest. When he helped Noah with homework now, it wasn't just a friend being helpful. When she leaned against him on the couch after the kids were asleep, it wasn't just exhaustion seeking proximity. They were building something intentional, even if neither could quite name what it would eventually become. October brought cooler weather finally, the oppressive heat breaking into mornings that actually required jackets. Lila started coming home from pre-K with elaborate stories about a boy named Marcus, who apparently ate paste and cried every day at circle time. Noah's second-grade teacher sent home a note praising his reading comprehension, which Ava had taped to the refrigerator with the pride of someone who'd fought hard for every small victory. Logan had started keeping a change of clothes at Ava's apartment. Just practical, he'd argued, since he was there so often anyway. Then it was a toothbrush in the bathroom, then drawer space that Ava had cleared without him asking, a silent acknowledgement that his presence had shifted from temporary to permanent. "You're basically living here," she'd observed one evening, folding his shirts alongside her own laundry at the card table that served too many purposes. "Basically," Logan agreed. He was on the floor helping Lila build an elaborate block tower that defied physics. "That okay?" "Yeah, it's okay." She said it like she was still surprising herself with the answer, but not everything was easy. Ava's ex-husband had stopped paying child support in September, 2 months running without a check or explanation. Her texts went unanswered. Her calls went to voicemail. The man had apparently decided that distance absolved responsibility, that geographic separation meant he could simply stop being a father in any capacity at all. Logan watched Ava's stress compound as the missing money threw off her carefully constructed budget. She picked up extra weekend hours at the library, which meant Logan stayed with the kids more. Not babysitting, he'd argue when she tried to frame it that way, just being present while she worked. But the financial pressure was taking its toll, visible in the new lines around her eyes and the way she'd stare at her bank account on her phone, like willing different numbers to appear. "I'm going to have to take him to court," she said one night, defeated. "File for enforcement, which costs money I don't have, and takes time I can't spare and probably won't work anyway, because he'll just claim hardship or quit his job or do whatever deadbeat dads do to avoid responsibility." "Let me help," Logan offered, not for the first time. No. Her refusal was automatic now, a reflex. "We talked about this." "That was about groceries and farmers markets. This is different. This is money he legally owes you for his children. And I'll handle it legally, through the courts, not through you playing hero." The word stung, though Logan knew she hadn't meant it cruelly. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to help someone I love who's drowning." "I'm not drowning. I'm treading water. There's a difference." "Barely." Ava set down her phone and looked at him with an expression that mixed frustration and affection. "Logan, I love that you want to help. I do. But I need you to understand, if I let you solve all my problems, what happens when you're not here anymore? I'm left even more dependent, even more unable to handle my own life. What if I'm always here?" "You can't promise that. Nobody can." "I can promise I'm going to try." She softened, reaching across the couch to take his hand. "I know you believe that right now. But life happens. People change. Feelings change. And I need to know I can survive on my own so that I'm choosing you, not needing you. There's a difference." Logan wanted to argue that choosing and needing weren't mutually exclusive, that healthy relationships involved both. But he also understood her fear, had lived with his own version of it for 2 years, the terror of depending on anything that could be taken away. So he squeezed her hand and changed tactics. "What if we approach this differently? Not me giving you money, but me watching the kids more so you can pick up extra hours? That's not financial dependence, that's just logistics." Ava considered this, looking for the trap she'd learned to anticipate. "You'd really want to watch them more? They're a lot. They're my favorite lot." And Noah still hasn't finished explaining his comprehensive ranking of all Spider-Man villains. "I feel like I owe him my full attention for that." That earned him a small smile. He does take his Spider-Man very seriously. As he should. It's important work. So the arrangement evolved again. Ava added Saturday shifts at the library, and Logan became the weekend primary parent for Noah and Lila. He'd pick them up Saturday mornings, take them for breakfast at a diner that wasn't Mel's but had similarly terrible coffee and good pancakes, then fill the day with parks and libraries and the kind of free entertainment that required creativity more than money. The kids adapted to this new rhythm with the flexibility of children who'd learned early that life meant constant adjustment. Lila started calling him Logan Dad, in a run-together way that made his heart do complicated things. Noah was more cautious with his affection, but Logan noticed the boys seeking him out for help with things he could probably figure out himself, opening a stubborn jar, reaching something on a high shelf, small requests that felt like trust being extended incrementally. One Saturday in late October, Logan took them to a fall festival at a local farm. Hay rides and pumpkin patches and all the seasonal nonsense that felt wholesome in a way his childhood hadn't included. Noah wanted a pumpkin to carve, and Lila wanted approximately 17 pumpkins of varying sizes for purposes she couldn't quite articulate. They compromised on 3, one for each kid and one for Ava. Logan paid the $15 without thinking about it, then caught himself and wondered if this violated their agreements. But pumpkins felt seasonal and temporary, not like ongoing financial support, so he decided it fell into an acceptable gray area. "Can we carve them when we get home?" Noah asked, struggling to carry his medium-sized pumpkin across the parking lot. "Your mom's working until 5. We could start the process, but she'll probably want to help finish them." "Will you stay for dinner?" This from Lila, who'd insisted on carrying her small pumpkin herself, despite it being almost as big as her torso. "If your mom says it's okay." "She always says it's okay," Noah pointed out with 7-year-old logic. "You have dinner with us like every night." "Not every night. Well, most nights, which is basically every night." Logan couldn't argue with that math. He loaded the kids and their pumpkins into his truck, listening to them debate carving designs. Noah wanted something scary and cool, while Lila advocated for a princess pumpkin with a crown. Back at the apartment, they spread newspapers on the kitchen floor, and Logan got out a knife to start the carving process. He just cut the top off Noah's pumpkin when his phone rang. Ava's name on the screen. "Hey," he answered. "We're home and covered in pumpkin guts. Highly successful morning." "Logan." Her voice was wrong, tight and scared in a way that made his chest constrict. "I need you to stay calm, but I need you to come to St. Mary's Hospital. Now." Everything in him went cold. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. It's not... I'm okay. But something happened and I need you here and I can't..." Her voice broke. "Please just come. Bring the kids." "On our way. 10 minutes." He hung up and looked at Noah and Lila, both watching him with the instinctive wariness children developed when adults use certain tones. "Change of plans. We need to go see your mom." "Is Mama okay?" Noah's voice had gone small. "She said she's fine. She just needs us right now." Logan was already grabbing their jackets, his keys, moving on autopilot while his mind raced through possibilities. "Come on, quick." The drive to St. Mary's took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Logan kept his voice calm, answering the kids' increasingly worried questions with reassurances he wasn't sure he believed. Ava had said she was fine, but people said that when they were anything but fine. Had she been in an accident? Was she sick? Had something happened at work? He parked in the emergency lot and hustled the kids through automatic doors into fluorescent brightness and that particular hospital smell of antiseptic and anxiety. Ava was in the waiting room looking small in one of the plastic chairs, and when she saw them, she stood quickly. She wasn't injured. Logan registered that first with overwhelming relief. No casts, no bandages, no visible trauma. But her face was blotchy from crying, and her hands were shaking as she reached for her children. "Mama!" Lila crashed into her legs and Noah pressed close, both kids needing physical confirmation that she was intact. "I'm okay, babies, I'm okay." Ava held them tight, then looked at Logan over their heads. Is there somewhere we can talk? Just for a minute?" A nurse directed them to a small consultation room, and Ava settled the kids with her phone and a promise to explain everything soon. Then she pulled Logan into the hallway, out of their earshot. "I got a call 2 hours ago," she said without preamble. "From a hospital in Phoenix. It's David, my ex. He was in a car accident. She pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting for composure. "He's in critical condition. They don't know if he's going to make it." Logan pulled her close, feeling her shake against him. "I'm so sorry." "I don't know what to feel. I divorced him. I haven't spoken to him in months. I should be angry, right? About the child support and the abandonment and everything. But all I can think is that my kids might lose their father, like actually permanently lose him. And I don't know how to. She dissolved into tears. Logan held her, letting her cry, his mind already working through implications. Do Noah and Lila know? Not yet. I wanted you here first. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes desperate. I don't know how to tell them. What if he dies? What if I tell them he's hurt, and then he dies? But what if I don't tell them and he dies, and they never got to, I don't know, process it or something? Hey, breathe. Logan kept his voice steady, anchoring. First, what do the doctors say? What's his actual status? Traumatic brain injury, internal bleeding. They did emergency surgery. He's stable for now, but the next 48 hours are critical. She recited it like reading from a report, clinical distance protecting her from the emotional weight. They called me because I'm still listed as his emergency contact. Apparently, he never updated his paperwork after we divorced. Do you need to go there? To Phoenix? I don't know. Maybe. The hospital said family can visit, but they couldn't tell me much over the phone about what... She gestured helplessly. I haven't seen him in 3 years. I don't know if I count his family anymore. You're the mother of his children. You count. Logan took her hands, making her focus. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down with Noah and Lila and tell them the truth in age-appropriate ways. Then we're going to figure out next steps together. If you need to go to Phoenix, I'll drive you. If you need to stay here, we stay. But you're not making these decisions alone. Logan, you have work. I have vacation days I haven't used. Work can wait. You can't. Fresh tears spilled over. Why are you so good to me? Because I love you, and because this is what people do when they love each other. They show up for the hard stuff. They went back to the consultation room where Noah and Lila were watching videos on Ava's phone, blissfully unaware that their world was about to tilt. Ava sat down and pulled them close, and Logan watched her gather the courage to break their small hearts. I need to tell you something about your dad, she started gently. Noah's face went wary. Is he dead? The bluntness of it shocked Ava speechless for a second. No, baby, he's not dead. But he was in a car accident, and he's hurt pretty badly. He's in the hospital in Arizona. Is he gonna die? Noah's voice was carefully flat, like he was already protecting himself from the answer. The doctors don't know yet. They're doing everything they can to help him get better. Lila looked confused. Can we visit him? It's very far away, honey, and he's very sick right now, but we're going to figure out what to do, okay? Okay. But Lila's lower lip was trembling, and Logan could see her processing something too big for 4-year-old understanding. Noah said nothing, his face gone carefully blank in a way that worried Logan more than tears would have. The boy stood and walked to the corner of the small room, staring at the wall with his arms crossed tightly. Noah? Ava started to stand, but Logan touched her arm gently. Let me. He crossed to Noah and sat on the floor beside him, not touching, just present. They sat in silence for several minutes before Noah spoke. I don't care if he dies. The words were delivered with shaky bravado, and Logan heard all the hurt underneath them. It's okay if you do care. It's also okay if you don't. Or if you feel both things at the same time. He left us. He doesn't call. He doesn't send money anymore. Why should I care about him? Because he's your dad. And feelings don't have to make logical sense. You can be angry at someone and still not want them to die. Noah's facade cracked. But what if I do want him to... He stopped, horrified by his own thought. What if I'm a bad person? You're not a bad person. You're a 7-year-old kid who's been hurt by someone who should have protected you. That's not your fault. And your feelings about it, whatever they are okay. But Mama's sad. I should be sad too, right? Your mama's sad because this is complicated and scary. But her sadness doesn't mean you have to feel the same way. Everyone gets to have their own feelings about hard things. Noah finally looked at him, eyes red. Are you going to leave too? The question hit Logan in the chest. No. How do you know? Dad probably thought he wouldn't leave either. You're right. I can't know the future, but I can tell you that I choose to be here every single day. And I'm going to keep choosing that as long as you and your mom and Lila will have me. What if you die like Dad might die? Logan pulled Noah close, feeling the small body shaking. Then I die knowing I loved you guys with everything I had. But I'm planning on sticking around for a really long time. I've got a comprehensive Spider-Man villain discussion to finish, remember? That earned him a watery almost laugh. They sat together while Noah cried properly, and across the room Logan could see Ava holding Lila, both of them crying too. A family breaking and holding together simultaneously, right there in a hospital consultation room under fluorescent lights that flickered periodically. Eventually, they pulled themselves together enough to leave. Ava needed to make calls, to the hospital in Phoenix, to her supervisor at the library, to the lawyer she'd been consulting about child support, who would need to know about this development. Logan took the kids home, got them fed with pizza he ordered because cooking felt impossible, and sat with them through an animated movie none of them actually watched. Ava came home around 8, looking hollowed out. The hospital had updated her. David's condition was stable but unchanged. The next 24 hours would determine trajectory. She could fly out if she wanted, but there was no guarantee she'd be allowed to see him given their divorce and his family's potential objections. I don't know what to do, she admitted to Logan after the kids were finally asleep. They sat on her small balcony, the October night cool around them. Part of me feels like I should go, like the kids need a parent there advocating if decisions need to be made. But another part of me thinks, why? He abandoned us. His parents never approved of me anyway, and I can't afford a last-minute flight to Phoenix. I'll pay for it if you decide to go. Logan, this isn't about our grocery agreement. This is emergency circumstances. If you need to be there, you should be there. She leaned against him, exhausted. I think I need to wait. See what the next day brings. If he doesn't make it, there's nothing I can do anyway. And if he does make it, then we figure out next steps when there's more information. Okay, then we wait. They waited through the longest Sunday of Logan's life. He stayed at the apartment, keeping the kids distracted while Ava fielded calls from the hospital and David's family, his mother hostile and accusatory, his sister more sympathetic but equally overwhelmed. The kids were subdued, going through motions without their usual energy. Noah in particular had retreated into himself, answering questions with monosyllables and spending long periods just staring at nothing. Monday morning brought news. David had regained consciousness. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about recovery, though the extent of lasting damage wouldn't be clear for weeks. He was awake and asking for his kids. Ava received this information with visible confusion. He wants to see them? After 3 years of not wanting to see them? Trauma does strange things to people, Logan offered, makes them reevaluate. Or it's the morphine talking, and next week he'll be back to ignoring they exist. But Ava was already making calculations. I should take them. If he's asking, I can't deny them that, right? When do you want to go? As soon as possible, before he changes his mind or... She stopped herself before completing that darker thought. Logan called his boss and explained he was taking emergency family leave. Then he bought 4 plane tickets to Phoenix for Tuesday morning, refusing Ava's protests by pointing out that she couldn't navigate a strange city with 2 kids alone, and someone needed to drive and coordinate logistics. She finally agreed with the exhausted surrender of someone too overwhelmed to keep fighting. The flight was Noah's first and Lila's second, though she didn't remember the first. Logan sat with Lila, who pressed her nose against the window and narrated the entire experience to her stuffed monkey. Across the aisle, Ava held Noah's hand through takeoff, his face pale with nerves. Phoenix in late October was still warm, the desert heat a sharp contrast to the cooling autumn they'd left. Logan rented a car and navigated to the hospital where David Mitchell was learning to be conscious again. St. Joseph's was bigger than St. Mary's, more modern, and somehow more intimidating. They found David's room on the 4th floor, and Ava made the kids wait in the hallway while she went in first. Logan watched through the small window as Ava approached the bed where her ex-husband lay connected to various machines. He couldn't hear their conversation, but he saw David's face, younger than Logan had pictured, handsome in that careless way some men were, now marred by bruising and bandages. He saw David's expression crumble when he saw Ava, saw him reach for her hand, saw her hesitate before taking it. Something twisted in Logan's chest, not jealousy exactly, but a recognition that he was witnessing something private, something that predated him and involved history he couldn't fully understand. "Is that our dad?" Lila asked, peering through the window. "Yeah, baby, that's your dad. He looks different than his picture. He's been hurt, remember? The bandages are helping him heal." Noah said nothing, just stared through the window with an expression Logan couldn't read. After a few minutes, Ava came back out. Her eyes were red but dry. "He wants to see you guys, but remember, he's got a lot of wires and machines. It might look scary, but it's all there to help him." "Is he going to die?" Lila asked directly. "No, honey. The doctors think he's going to be okay." "Can we go in now?" Ava looked at Noah, who still hadn't spoken. "Noah? You okay?" "I guess." "You don't have to go in if you don't want to." "No, I want to." But his hand found Logan's, gripping tight. "Will you come with us?" Logan glanced at Ava, who nodded. They entered the room together, Ava leading, Lila bouncing with her usual irrepressible energy, Noah gripping Logan's hand like a lifeline, and Logan himself feeling like an intruder in someone else's family reunion. David's eyes tracked them as they entered, and Logan saw the moment the man registered his presence. Confusion followed by something that might have been understanding or might have been resentment. "Who's this?" David's voice was rough, damaged by intubation. "This is Logan," Ava said carefully. "He's a friend. He helped us get here." A friend. David's tone made it clear he understood the subtext, but then his attention shifted to the kids. Noah, Lila, God, you've gotten so big. Lila approached the bed without fear, peering at all the machines with open curiosity. "What's this tube for?" "It gives me medicine so I don't hurt as much." "Does it hurt a lot?" "Sometimes, but less than before." Noah hung back, and Logan felt the boy's uncertainty in every tense line of his small body. "Noah," David said gently, "will you come here? Please?" Noah looked up at Logan, seeking something: permission, reassurance, courage. Logan squeezed his hand once and then let go, giving him space to make his own choice. The boy approached the bed slowly, stopping just out of reach. "Hi." "Hi, buddy. I'm really glad you came." "Mama said you wanted to see us." "I did. I do." David's voice cracked. I've been a terrible father, worse than terrible, and I don't expect you to forgive me or even understand, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." Noah's face was doing something complicated. "Why did you leave?" "Because I was scared and selfish and stupid. Because I thought my life would be easier without the responsibility, and I was wrong about everything." "Are you going to leave again, when you're better?" The question hung in the air, and Logan watched David struggle with it, the easy lie versus the harder truth. "I don't know," David finally said. "I want to say no, that I'm going to be different now. But I've said that before and failed, so I don't know. All I can tell you is that I want to try." It wasn't the answer a 7-year-old wanted, but it was honest, and Logan respected that. They stayed for 20 minutes, long enough for Lila to give a comprehensive update on pre-K and for Noah to slowly defrost into telling his dad about 2nd grade. David listened with an attention that seemed genuine, asking questions, responding thoughtfully. When they left, he'd extracted promises that they'd visit again before flying home. In the hallway, Noah was quiet, processing. Ava pulled him close. "You okay?" "I don't know. Maybe?" "That's fair. This is all very confusing. Is he going to be our dad again?" Ava exchanged glances with Logan. "He's always going to be your dad, honey, but whether he acts like one, that's something we'll have to see." They visited twice more over the next 3 days. Each time, David was stronger, more present. He asked about their lives with genuine interest. He apologized repeatedly to Ava for the missed child support, for the abandonment, for failing at the most basic requirements of fatherhood. He acknowledged Logan with careful politeness, clearly understanding that this stranger had filled the space he'd vacated. On their last visit before flying home, David asked to speak with Logan alone. Ava looked hesitant, but Logan nodded. I'll be right outside, she said, shepherding the kids out. David waited until the door closed. So, you and Ava? Yeah. And my kids? Yeah. Are you? David seemed to struggle with how to phrase it. Are you good to them? I try to be. They seem happy, Noah especially. He was so angry before, but he's different now, lighter. David's voice was rough with emotion. Is that because of you? That's because of Ava. She's the one doing the hard work. But you're there, helping. I am. David nodded slowly. Thank you. For stepping up when I stepped away. For being what they needed when I wasn't. I didn't do it for you. I know, but thank you anyway. David looked at the ceiling, blinking hard. I don't know if I can be a real father to them. The distance, the damage I've caused, it might be too much to fix. But knowing someone's there, someone who cares about them, his voice broke. That matters. Logan didn't know what to say to that, so he offered truth. I love them. All three of them. And I'm not going anywhere. Good. That's good. When they left St. Joseph's for the last time, Logan felt something shift. Like he'd been holding himself slightly apart, protecting himself from full investment in case this was temporary. But David's blessing, strange as it was, had removed some invisible barrier. These kids weren't his biologically, but they were his in every way that mattered. The flight home was quieter than the flight out. Noah fell asleep against Ava's shoulder. Lila colored elaborate pictures of Daddy's hospital with remarkable accuracy. And Logan held Ava's free hand, their fingers interlaced, feeling the weight of everything they'd navigated together. Thank you, she said quietly, for coming, for being there, for everything. You don't have to thank me. I know, but I want to. This time, he let her. November arrived with actual cold, the kind that required real coats and made breath visible. David called once a week from Phoenix, usually on Sunday afternoons. The conversations were awkward at first, long pauses and stilted exchanges, but they gradually found rhythm. He asked about school and friends and told them about his physical therapy, about learning to walk without dizziness, about the long recovery ahead. He still hadn't paid the back child support, but he'd set up automatic payments moving forward. It wasn't everything Ava was owed, but it was something. Consistency. Finally. He might actually follow through this time, she said one evening, cautiously optimistic. His near-death experience might have actually changed him. Or it might be temporary, Logan offered, not to be negative, but to protect her from disappointment. Either way, you've got backup now. We've got backup, she corrected. This isn't just you helping me anymore, Logan. This is us. Together. The conversation they'd been dancing around for weeks finally crystallized one evening in late November. The kids were asleep, and they were sitting on Ava's couch. Logan's couch, really, at this point, since he hadn't slept at his own house in 3 weeks. Move in with me, Logan said abruptly. You and the kids. Move into my house. Ava set down her tea carefully. That's a big step. I know, but I'm here every night anyway. And my house has actual space. 3 bedrooms, a yard, a garage where I could set up a workshop. The kids could have their own rooms. You'd have room to breathe. Logan, I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but when I think about my future, you're in it, you and Noah and Lila, and I don't want to keep splitting our lives between 2 places when we could just be together, fully. Ava was quiet for a long time, her face cycling through emotions. What if we fight? What if it doesn't work out? Then I'm stuck dependent on you again, and I can't. Then we figure it out like adults. I'm not David, Ava. I'm not going to abandon you if things get hard. And you're not trapped. My house isn't a cage. If you wanted to leave, you could leave. But I don't think you will, and I don't think I will. So why are we pretending we're not already building something permanent? You really want this? Want us? More than I've wanted anything in years. She started crying, the good kind, the releasing kind. Okay. Okay? Yes, let's do it. Let's be a family. The move happened over Thanksgiving weekend. Logan's coworkers helped haul furniture, what little Ava owned that was worth keeping. The kids ran through Logan's house like they were exploring new territory, claiming spaces and imagining possibilities. Noah chose the bedroom with the window overlooking the backyard. Lila wanted the one with the built-in shelves where she could display her stuffed animals. Ava stood in the master bedroom, their bedroom now, and looked overwhelmed. This is really happening. This is really happening. I'm terrified. Me too. But also happy? She said it like a question, like she wasn't sure she was allowed. Yeah, also happy. They spent Thanksgiving Day surrounded by people who'd helped them get there. Martha and Sarah and their families, co-workers who'd become friends, and on video call from Phoenix, David, who looked thinner but healthier, who told the kids he loved them and meant it this time. After dinner, after the guests had left and the kids were in bed in their new rooms, Logan and Ava stood on the back porch looking at the yard that would need raking and the fence that would need repairing and all the small maintenances that come with building a life. I have something for you, Logan said, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. Ava opened it carefully. It was a drawing, stick figures in crayon, 4 of them holding hands in front of a house. The sun above them was disproportionately large and yellow. At the bottom, in careful first-grade printing, My Family, by Noah. Ava's hand went to her mouth. When did he draw this? Last week. He asked me not to show you until we were moved in. Logan pointed to the figures. That's you, him, Lila, and me. He was very specific about the order. We're his family. We're his family, Logan confirmed. All of us. Ava folded the drawing carefully and pressed it to her chest. Then she turned to Logan, and her eyes held something he hadn't seen there before. Not just hope, but certainty. Thank you, she said, for seeing me crying in that parking lot and not walking away, for showing up every day after, for choosing us even when it was complicated and messy, and probably way more than you bargained for. Thank you for letting me, for trusting me with your kids and your life and your carefully guarded independence. We make a pretty good team. Yeah, we really do. Inside, they could hear Noah reading to Lila in her new room, his voice carrying down the hallway. Outside, the November wind rustled through trees that would need attention come spring. And here on the porch, 2 people who'd both known loneliness and loss held each other and recognized what they'd built. Not perfect, not without complications, but real and strong and worth fighting for. Sometimes life's best moments didn't arrive on schedule. Sometimes they started with a canceled date and a parking lot breakdown, and the simple choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. Sometimes family was something you built rather than something you were born into, constructed from daily choices and small kindnesses, and showing up even when, especially when, things were hard. Logan had spent 2 years believing he was done with hope, done with connection, done with risking his heart on anything that could hurt him again. Then he'd found 3 people who'd changed everything simply by needing someone to see them, to stay, to choose them consistently. And he'd discovered that love wasn't actually about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It was about looking at someone's complete chaos and saying yes anyway. It was about becoming family, not through biology, but through the daily work of showing up. It was about finding her crying in a parking lot and deciding that particular moment was exactly where he was supposed to be. Come on, Ava said, taking his hand. Let's go inside. I want to read our kids a bedtime story in our house. Our kids. Our house. Our life. Logan followed her inside, closing the door on the cold November night, and found his future waiting in a hallway filled with the sounds of children laughing and the warm light of home.